Check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
I think GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and say, we saw you on television. I say, oh yes, on what? On GB News.
Hello, are you the famous Sue? The whole crew hid me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here, right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again. You just tuned in. Where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Very good evening, good morning, live from Washington, D.C. This is Bev Turner on GB News with the stories shaping Great Britain and the United States of America. The sharks are circling. Greater Manchester Mayor has launched his bid to return to Westminster in a direct threat to the Prime Minister. But does he risk being wiped out of politics altogether by Reform UK with the seat that he's chosen?
Our ambition is to ensure that Andy Burnham is thrown out completely, because of course he has to resign as Mayor of Greater Manchester when nominations close.
It's a red revolt. So Keir Starmer's also rocked by the resignation of Health Secretary Wes Streeting, accusing the Prime Minister of failing to have a clear vision. And tonight, James Murray has been rushed in to replace him. It certainly seems like loyalty pays off in this government, because this was him on GB News Breakfast earlier today.
I think having a leadership election would be the wrong choice for us to take.
A tumultuous day here in Downing Street, ending with one simple realisation: this Prime Minister will not last the Parliament.
And we've seen a China charm offensive. Xi Jinping has rolled out the red carpet as President Trump hails their relationship one of the most consequential in world history.
The relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before.
And it's two-tier tech in the UK. The Met Police is planning to use facial recognition technology for the Unite the Kingdom rally this weekend, but not for a neighbouring pro-Palestine protest. Is this about to become two-tier Britain?
There are literally cameras everywhere in Beijing. We are outside the Haidian station, and I can count at least 20 on this corner.
I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Yeah, it's a nice coincidence, actually, as we're talking about surveillance cameras in the UK and facial recognition, of course. President Trump is in China, and that was one of the Fox News hosts who's done an item on how shocking it is, how many cameras they have in China. We're going to be having a look at the comparisons that can be made. Delighted to say in the studio this evening, I'm joined by journalist and broadcaster Angelina Mackahey. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. And former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell. Good to see you, Matt.
Great to be with you.
And in London, former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett and journalist and broadcaster, I think, Jonathan Liss. This is me being treated to you for, I think, the third time this week, is it?
It's my treat and yours. I'm sure we'll have a lovely time.
Right, thank you all for joining us. We will get to you in just a moment. But moving on to our main news this evening. Wes Streeting has quit as Health Secretary, and former Chief Secretary to the Treasury, James Murray, has just been appointed to that position. Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has also fired the starting gun on his bid to become Prime Minister, as he announces he's going to try and stand in this Makerfield by-election, which only has been made possible by the resignation of a Labour MP called Josh Simons. Bring you up to speed, our Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood, has the latest from Downing Street. And Tom, it has not been a quiet day, has it?
It's been a day of drama here on Downing Street that started with one simple question. What will the Health Secretary do? For hours we were waiting, and silence came there from Wes Streeting until this afternoon, when his resignation letter dropped. It was scathing towards the Prime Minister, saying that the Prime Minister pushed others onto swords rather than taking the blame himself for his mistakes. It read like the start of a leadership contest, though it's important to note Wes Streeting didn't declare himself a candidate in his resignation letter. He said that there should be the broadest possible fields of candidates, something that many people interpreted as an endorsement for the return of Andy Burnham to Parliament. Later this day, then that's exactly what happened. Well, almost. After all, the Makerfield MP, Josh Simons, announced he is to resign to clear the way for Andy Burnham to take his seat. But it's not quite as simple as that. In order for that to happen, the Labour Party NEC, which meets next Tuesday, needs to allow Andy Burnham to get onto that shortlist. And then the local party need to adopt him as their candidate. After that, there will be a tough by-election campaign. I spoke to Nigel Farage earlier on the phone, who told me that the Reform Party will throw everything they have at this particular by-election. It's in the seat of Makerfield, in the wider area of Wigan, the council area that Reform won every single seat in just last Thursday. This is an incredibly Reform-friendly part of the country, and there's a real question mark over whether the Labour Mayor, Andy Burnham, popular as he is in Greater Manchester, can actually win the seat. Huge rumours now swirl in terms of what is actually going to happen in this contest, this putative contest to replace Sir Keir Starmer. Could it be that Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister in a coronation without a contest at all? Well, we're yet to hear from Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband, other potential contestants in this contest. And what might Wes Streeting do? Can he find the names after all? There's still a lot more to come in what has been a dramatic day here in Downing Street.
Thank you, Tom Harwood. Thank you, Tom. And in some breaking news we can bring you just now, the Sun newspaper is reporting that Reform UK has already opened its candidate selection for Makerfield, and applications will close this Sunday. So whoever wants that seat has got to get in there. PDQ. Let's talk now to all my panel about this. Let me start with my Americans here. Matt. Let me bring you. It's inevitable one day. You'll be VP. You'll be VP at some point. You'll be the Secretary of State. Right. Listen, Matt. So, what do you make of this when you see what's going on in the UK and how weak Starmer is on the national stage at home now? What's your assessment of it?
Well, it's just compounding. I mean, look, every day is getting worse for him politically. And the problem is in order to fix all this, in my view, he would need to go into a time machine. And you simply can't do that. And you're at a stage right now where each day you just have to kind of muscle through it. But look, part of this is what we're not talking about enough is just, in politics, it's almost like being a political athlete, and there are some people and candidates or politicians who have kind of, I hate to say it, but really kind of the ability to muscle through these kind of things and survive. You think through Bill Clinton when he's going through impeachment, he survived. To be candid, I hate to be so frank and blunt, I'm not sure Keir Starmer is talented enough as a political athlete to survive this. But beyond that, he's seen so many people from his own party leaving him, cabinet members, obviously. Look, even President Biden faced the kind of situation that Keir Starmer is facing right now. And as we know, President Biden was kicked out of his own party by own members in his party. Keir Starmer is facing similar challenges, obviously.
Let me come to you, Matthew Torbett, because you're something of an athlete yourself. Does he have what it takes, Starmer, to hang on in there, to cling on now? Does he have that kind of endurance ability? Because there's a very good possibility that Andy Burnham will not win this seat, Matt.
Yeah, I think there's a very good possibility he does win it as well, though. But say he doesn't, I think number 10 holds the cards. It's within Keir Starmer's remit to not resign, and I think the only way at the moment you're going to get Keir Starmer out is you almost need what happened with Boris Johnson in 2022. There needs to be a queue, basically, of cabinet ministers resigning so that there is nobody left. You are unable to fill the payroll parts of the government, whether that be PPS's ministers and secretaries of state. We're not at that point yet, and I think that's because deals are being done and people are waiting to see what happens, certainly in Makerfield. But I think at the moment he's going to carry on all the more. We've seen today there's been a bit of a reshuffle. We've got a new health secretary, and I think certainly until after the by-election and onwards, he's going to be the Prime Minister.
Yeah, until... OK, so how long will that take, Matt? How long have we got, do you think, before that by-election can actually happen?
It's a little bit like a piece of string, but I imagine the party will open their applications. That'll last about a week. So we're probably looking at maybe next Sunday they'll close an interview. They'll hopefully have a candidate, I imagine, the following Monday. At that point, the Chief Whip will move the writ in Parliament to allow for the by-election to happen. Then you're looking at about 4 weeks from that. So, I mean, we're looking end of July, August time for a result, possibly. And then we'll have a new MP in Makerfield, regardless of who it is.
Angelina, when you are listening to this, does it seem quite quaint, British politics, the way we do this? We don't, I mean, you could say this is democracy in action, but it moves slowly in the UK, things like this. Do you think it would happen much more quickly here in America?
No, I mean, it definitely doesn't happen quickly here. Look at how many times, impeachments have been brought against different presidents and they haven't really gone anywhere. Now, I think that from, an American perspective and what I see going on in UK politics, there's a lot of chaos going around Keir Starmer right now. What you guys are projecting on the global stage is not really a position of strength. So whatever is going on in the UK, I think you guys definitely need to sort it out. Whether Keir is staying in power, he needs to assert that authority on the global stage, because right now it's not being respected, or whether you guys are getting new leadership. But either way, it seems very chaotic.
I feel a bit told off there, Brits. I don't know about you, but I think we've just, heard a bit of truth there from the Americans. And does it matter, Jonathan, on the global stage? And to some extent, we're kind of lucky that Trump is in China. He's got other things to deal with. Maybe by the time we've settled things in the UK, the relationship between the two countries will be intact. And back to Andy Burnham, though. Let's bring it back to this idea that he's got this seat in Makerfield. What do you make of that choice, Jonathan?
Well, on the first point, Bev, I don't think that it matters on the global stage. All countries have power struggles at the top of government. Every country does. Prime ministers in all countries fall. There are internal party dynamics in all countries. I think, in a few months' time, we'll have moved on from this. Whoever the next prime minister is will have much bigger problems than this to worry about on the global stage. In terms of Burnham, it's actually really funny because I walked into the green room a few minutes ago and I accosted Matthew, I'm very fond of, and I said, you said, behind the scenes the other day, that he was going to go for a seat he could win. And Makerfield was almost reformed 2 years ago, 5,000 votes short. And Matthew said, I said to you, you don't mind if I repeat this conversation, but he said something really interesting, which is that that's the way Burnham wants it. If he was going for a really safe Labour seat, not there are many of those anymore, but if he was going for a really safe Labour seat, it would look like he was taking the election for granted, and it would look like he was just going to be there, and it wouldn't show anything. But if he can win a seat like Makerfield, and I'm not entirely sure that he can, but if he can win a seat that Reform almost took 2 years ago, if he can see off Reform now, and Reform is going to throw the entire kitchen sink in this by-election, no doubt about it, then Burnham will in fact demonstrate that he can win back the seats that Labour is currently losing or projects to lose to Reform. And if he doesn't, then obviously I said what happens then? Well, obviously Labour is then in big trouble. But I could see the argument that Burnham's taking a calculated and it's extraordinary risk, Bev, absolutely. But if he can pull this off, he can show that he has a chance of winning back seats for Labour.
It's totally stupid. Just flesh that out for me a bit, Matt, if you would, because I think what you're saying is it's almost like he doesn't want to be the token MP to get in there. He feels like he needs to get the validation maybe of his peers and the rest of the Labour Party to say, wow, he went out there and he won this seat that wasn't a done deal. If he's bothered about what it's going to look like, he's going to look defeated at the moment. That's what he's going to look like, and that's going to be absolutely ridiculous. This is one of those times where he needs to put that ego to one side and just go for the safest seat possible, surely.
No, because I think that has the opposite impact. I think people therefore go, you're just using us. You're taking the electorate for granted. You know, you could put anyone in here. I had it floated to me this week, he's definitely going to run in Stockport, isn't he? And I said, well, as much as it would make me happy as a Stockport lad, have somebody like Andy Burnham representing us, because that's the sort of seat that won't go at the moment to Reform. All the polls, even at the next general election, at the minute, show we're still winning by 10 points there. What does it show? You can walk into anywhere that Labour's safe, well done. If you show what you've got, what it takes to take on whatever the party is, whether it be Reform, whether it be the Greens and whatever else, I think it shows elements of leadership. I don't think... There's no way this is anything other than courageous, the idea this man's going to put his whole career on the line for the sake of going back into Parliament.
Yeah, but you know what that is? That is so politically minded Westminster nonsense, what you've just identified there. That will be lost on so many of the general public. They won't sit around going, oh, he did well to win that, didn't he? He went for a tough seat and he won it. Or they're going to sit around and go, well, that was ridiculous. He's been blown out of the water because Reform are going to throw everything at that seat, and they've just annihilated Labour in the local councils in that area. It's all very well to say, well, it's a Labour MP from 2024, but if you look at the swing towards Reform in that area as of last week, it's highly unlikely that Andy Burnham's going to win that seat, Matt. This is not the time to somehow peacock that you won a difficult seat. This is the time to just go, I'm aiming low, I don't care, I need to get over that threshold of number 10 and I need to save the country. Maybe. Am I seeing what... Do you get it, Matt?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it comes down to political risk, right? I mean, and timing is everything. And, you know, look, whether that's in UK politics or US politics, it comes down to timing. It comes down to what was the political risk you're willing to take in order to figure out what your career looks like going forward here. But look, there's a lot at stake right now. And there's a lot of momentum right now in the country going against Keir Starmer right now. We'll see how that unfolds here.
It just feels like playing around with like a small issue by picking a seat that isn't safe. And the risk of that is so high. If he loses, that's just going to be catastrophic for Labour and terrible for Andy Burnham.
He grew up in that area. He's lived in that area for 30 years.
Yeah.
That is a home seat. And I think at the same time, yes, it was awful what happened in the local elections for Labour up in Makerfield and around the Wigan area. Andy Burnham wasn't on the ballot. And if we look at Andy Burnham in the round, his approval rating in the North West is +20. Keir Starmer's is -40. If you're voting for Andy Burnham rather than Keir Starmer, I think it will be a slightly different result.
But Bev,
I also think hang on, let me respond to that, because I think, Matthew, what you've just done there, again, it's that very political thing. As someone who, as you do work in politics and see it inside and out, I think that idea that you always look for a candidate that can say, I grew up here, I know this area, I know what you need, and, you know, I get that in a general election. This is not that time. This is not that. That is not what they need right now. They just need somebody who they needed to put him in a seat where he's going to win. And I just think there's so little chance of him winning because you look at the council elections.
Absolutely no question whatsoever he will be triumphant. I've never been more confident, Bev. Wow. And if people want to laugh at me and I have to wear humble pie, so be it. I've been looking at this for the last 12 months, and it has to be a seat like this. And I think if you look at the way Reform have performed in by-elections, they've won 1 by 6 votes, they lost in Caerphilly and they lost in Denton and Gorton. It isn't this absolute juggernaut across the northwest as it's painted to be.
But that seat in Makerfield, we'll dig into this anyway, because we'll look at the numbers on that, because this seat only a week ago, Reform were out in their thousands in Makerfield. Anyway, let's move on quickly. I'm going to talk now to the author of the Spectator's Morning Press, Angus Colwell. Angus, thank you for joining us. You may have been listening to that conversation there. What do you think about this selection? Good to see you. What do you think about Andy Burnham picking this seat, which isn't safe, and Matt Torbett's assessment that it's a kind of a sign of bravery and courage that he's chosen to do that?
I don't think it's a choice at all. I think Josh Simons is the only MP that was willing to stand aside. I mean, Josh Simons had had to resign as Cabinet Office Minister a couple of months ago. His political stock is slightly on the wane right now. There are many, many, many safer seats that Andy Burnham would have liked to have gone for. Clearly what's happened is there hasn't been a Labour MP willing to stand aside. He's had to make do with the seat that's come available, and it's going to be incredibly difficult for him. I mean, he does have the advantage of, I mean, it's somewhat confusing why, but there is strong polling data that suggests that he polls better with Reform voters than other Labour leaders. But still, this is a really hard test in a patch that Reform did incredibly well in at the locals. But no, we shouldn't be under the illusion. I know Andy Burnham's people are sort of putting out this evening that he really wants to test himself. No, he doesn't. He wants an easy way in. This is not the time to test himself. And Josh Simons is the only MP that's been willing to stand aside.
And would there be any way, what do you think has been going on, Angus, behind the scenes? Have the whips been calling round various MPs and requesting that they stand aside? Are there no deals that could have been done to get rid of somebody that was or is in a safer seat?
I doubt the whips have, because they still answer to Keir Starmer. I mean, there's the sort of funny situation where the worst thing for Andy Burnham would be if Keir Starmer rocked up in Makerfield and started campaigning for him. He's going to have to walk around knocking the doors going, do you hate Keir Starmer? Well, so do I. Elect me. Which is a bizarre campaign. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I think what may have happened, which is quite interesting, is that Josh Simons is on the right of the party. Andy Burnham is not. Josh Simons is incredibly close to ministers like Shabana Mahmood, who's has been doing a very good job as Home Secretary on sort of lowering illegal immigration in particular. What you're sort of getting at the moment is the slight sense of a coalition from the right and the left of the party, because I think they recognise that if there is one thing that Burnham has over Starmer, it's electoral popularity. And I think that may be the coalition you're seeing here.
Yeah, well, absolutely fascinating. Angus, thank you so much, author of The Spectator's Morning Press there, Angus Colwell. Thank you for joining us. Let me know what you think at home. Somebody has just said here in relation to Matthew Torbett suggesting he's going to eat humble pie. They said, humble pie it is then, says Dave. Would you like gravy with that or custard? Do you know what gravy is?
Like traditional US gravy, or we're talking UK gravy?
UK gravy.
I'm not as aware of that.
Do you know what gravy is?
Yeah, I imagine it's just,
Would you put it on your chips?
No.
No. You see, you don't know.
But they have some. Would they bring some in?
Say that again. I'll bring some in.
Bring some in, yeah.
Oh, custard. Your custard is the same, right?
Custard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Custard. Yeah, a lot of words don't mean the same thing here. Right, still to come on The Late Show Live this evening.
The relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before.
President Trump will continue his crunch talks in China in just a few hours as he hails their relationship the most important in the world. What does that mean about us? First, though, tonight,
I see very little prospect of the relationship between Starmer and Trump improving.
what does the White House make of an embattled Prime Minister barely clinging on to power? A senior advisor to the President will reveal all next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, look, there's no shortage of speculation in the media, and the Prime Minister said himself on Monday if there were a leadership election, he would stand in that leadership election and win and continue as Prime Minister.
That was our new Health Secretary on GB News earlier today, but also the Prime Minister has now been hit with a total of 5 significant cabinet resignations, and just under 100 MPs are have set out a timeline for his departure. For the time being, Keir Starmer is continuing to basically squat in Downing Street. But what is the view of this crisis from over here in Washington, D.C.? Delighted to say I'm joined in the studio now by Senior Advisor to President Trump and very good friend of the show, Jason Miller. Jason, I'm glad your president is away, because frankly we've got so much domestic politics to deal with at the moment. I don't know how we would fit both of them in, but what's your impression of what's going on in the UK?
Well, I don't think President Trump is going to be shedding a tear if Keir Starmer is shown the door, especially with the way that he sat out Iran and had the U.S. do all of the work. But I think as far as the U.S. seeing what's going on, it really was a matter of when, not if, this was going to happen, because what we've seen in Britain is the fact that you have these two parties that don't really stand for much, meaning the Tories and meaning Labour. But especially Labour, and Labour is fracturing. They've seen the success that Reform has had. So you have all these the Greens that are all defecting from Labour. So it looks a bit of a mess, but the one thing that does not look like a mess is the one clear light through all of this, which is Nigel's Reform Party. Yeah. because that party actually has some real ideas, some real structure, some real solid people that are forming that shadow cabinet right now. And so while the other two are fighting over the scraps, Reform seems to be leading the way.
Yeah, I won't get into the detail of the machinations about Andy Burnham, the Manchester mayor who's going to stand. It's very complicated and it's sort of a bit of a process issue. But where do you think this leaves Labour going into the next election, which could be as much as just over 2 years away?
Well, the problem again for Labour is they're in a pickle. What do they really stand for? Because you have the Greens, who are now making them look like they're the centrist part of the bureaucracy, part of the status quo. Reform's clearly leading a movement where, by the way, Reform is taking a lot of Labour voters as well. They're not just taken from the Tories. They're taking anyone who's frustrated with the way the system is let down, folks. And so Labour's got a real problem. They're going to have to find out where's their way in the world. Do they move further left to try to grab some of those Greens back? Do they try to be normal and stop the small boat crisis and things like that? We know that's not going to be the case. They're going to continue to embrace that. So this is a real problem. Their thing too is right now they're trying to find a patchwork replacement. Can they get a mayor from someplace? They're going to pull somebody in off the sidelines. There's nobody who actually represents a movement, and that's going to be a problem for Labour. We have got, talking of a movement, we've got this huge Unite the Kingdom rally in London this weekend, and in fact it's been announced today that the Met Police are going to roll out facial recognition on the streets for that protest. It's not really a protest. They would say it's a celebration, let's say, of people who believe in the UK, etc. But obviously the British government has stopped various people from going, particularly a few Americans, outspoken Conservatives. What does the White House think about that? I don't think the White House is paying too much attention. I mean, we're at a war with Iran right now. A number of issues. There's still have Russia and Ukraine that's going on. So I don't think folks in the White House are really paying much attention to what's going on. And again, the other thing too is the polling is so clearly in Reform's favor right now that if you're in the U.S., if you're busy with war and a number of other things, you look, one party's way ahead whenever the next election is going to be, and it's someone who's favorable, I think would be much more aligned with the president and with America.
Talking of the president, how do you think China has gone? It's a flying visit. They come home tomorrow. It's a very short period of time, but how do you think it's gone?
Seems to be going well so far. I mean, the real outcome is going to be what kind of a trade deal do we get to. We started with a framework that we got in Geneva and tightened up really when they were in Seoul. But now where are we getting to as far as that deal? Will the rare earths continue to come? Will China commit to purchasing more ag commodities, things of that nature? That's the details are really going to bear it out.
And also, hopefully, we're seeing the headlines that President Xi has agreed not to supply Iran with weapons, we believe at the moment. That's going to be the first thing on the president's desk when he's back, isn't he, next week?
Yeah, and this is the thing for folks to understand, is that part of the reason that President Trump is going on this trip is because China is one of the very few players who can truly impact what Iran is doing. That's because China buys so much oil from Iran. So if China is sending the message and they're legitimately not working anything behind the scenes to go and help them, that will help bring Iran to the table. And by the way, China's looking at this saying the Strait of Hormuz impacts us. The other thing too, we talked about the Strait of Malacca, which I think this is really starting to wake people up to how important South China Sea is. So this, I think China is realizing here that they have some real choke points, and it doesn't matter how much they have stocked up with their strategic petroleum reserve, they need this conflict to be over.
Yeah, don't we all? Jason, thank you so much. Good to see you. Jason Miller. Right, moving on very quickly. Let's talk to Labour commentator Simon Nash. Simon, I'm talking to you so you can launch a staunch defence of the Prime Minister. We're 30 minutes into the show. We haven't heard a lot of good about him at the moment. When he said he didn't want to go because he didn't want more chaos for the country, we're starting to wonder whether he had a point.
Well, I think absolutely, yeah. We don't want any more chaos by another leadership election and another Prime Minister. We had that under the Conservatives, and it's not good for the country. Look, I think Keir is going to have he's going to somehow persuade the EU to make it all about trade rather than migration. Economic growth is up, where it was until the Iran crisis, and he'll come up with a way to stop the small boats, and then he'll be in a much better position.
Do you think if he does manage to hang on to his seat, if, say, take this through, if Andy Burnham doesn't win that seat in Makerfield, and I don't think it's a given at all, I don't know what you think, but if Starmer somehow manages to retain the backing of his party and his backbenchers and he ends up being Prime Minister for the next 2 years, is he weakened by this, or is he ironically possibly stronger?
He would possibly be stronger. Sorry, I can hear my own voice through my earpiece. Sorry. So he's 100% safe until this by-election, when Andy Burnham might become a threat, or Andy Burnham might just join the cabinet once he does win that. But yeah, I think Keir Starmer is safe until that by-election occurs, and all the speculation on his leadership should end basically until then, and we can go back to stability.
And how welcoming do you think the Labour membership will be in the constituency of Makerfield to Andy Burnham coming in there, taking this seat quite clearly? We know what's going on. You know, you can't pretend it's anything other than a leadership bid. Will they welcome him, Simon?
Well, I think they will. He's done a lot for the north of England. He's done a lot for Manchester. We've got this Northern Rail Powerhouse bill going through, which will be great for the north of England. And he's done a lot of good up there. So I don't think they'll see it as a cynical ploy just to, just to become Prime Minister. I think they'll appreciate the work that he's done. He is a great guy. And he might go on to become Prime Minister, but I think Keir Starmer's doing a good job and will remain steadfast. You know, again, as I said last night, it's all emotional objection to Keir Starmer. None of it's about policy. I want people to go through actually all the good things that he's done, all of those policies. He's gone a bit off piece with digital ID. No one really likes that, but he's done a lot of good. You know, protecting care home kids. Economic growth was up until the Iran crisis, and a lot of good things happening. There's even the Shabana Mahmood's policy of stopping the boats, and what's happening there is on the right tracks. Immigration's down from the European Union, and he's making up for a lot of what the last government allowed. So I think he's doing good.
He's been quiet today, the Prime Minister, but as we go into next week, what do you think his messaging should be to the country?
That's a great question. I think he needs to, well, all the things in the King's speech are really positive. You know, we're getting forward towards energy independence to stop this reliance on Russian and other foreign gas sources with renewable and making it easier to build more nuclear energy. That's a really great thing. Again, care home kids used to get kicked out at 18 in the middle of their A-levels. They're going to get support up to the age of 25. The clean water bill, all the problems that people don't like. You know, British Rail, the rail company is really messing up. Trains deliberately leaving early or late and profiteering. He's putting an end to that with nationalisation. British Steel is being protected with nationalisation. There are a lot of forces at work trying to stop this stuff. If you own your apartment, I'm lucky enough to myself, service charge fraud is a huge issue. Nothing's been done about that. Keir Starmer is going to crack down on service charge fraud. That was mentioned in the King's speech, and ground rents as well for new properties. This sort of feudalism for apartment owners, costing people thousands of pounds, which is basically fraud. He's putting an end to that. The Renters' Right Act, again, people well into their 30s and 40s being kicked out of 2-year leases with 2 months' notice. He's putting an end to that. Of course, a lot of people don't like that, vested interests, but actually he's doing a lot of good if you look at the practicality. Forget his character and how good he is on TV. Look at the policies.
Okay, Simon, very convincing. Thank you so much, Simon Nash, there in our London studio. Let's have a quick look, shall we now, at some of the other main news here in America this evening. The chief of the US Customs and Border Patrol has announced that he is resigning, telling Fox News that his departure is effective immediately. Michael Banks had been in the role since Donald Trump's return to the White House. Elsewhere, Canada could join the Eurovision Song Contest. The North American country has reportedly been in talks for more than a year, as Prime Minister Mark Carney aims to forge closer ties with Europe. Strange story. And the former mayor of a small Kansas town, Jose Ceballos Armendariz, sorry about that, who is a Mexican green card holder and pleaded guilty last month in connection with illegally voting in several elections, has turned himself in to Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Chase County. And the boss of artificial intelligence company OpenAI, Sam Altman, has insisted that he is an honest and trustworthy business person. His comments follow Elon Musk's claim that he moved to steal the company and turn it from a charity into a capitalist venture. The two tech bosses are currently at the centre of a court battle over the firm behind ChatGPT. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
What
what we want to see is more law enforcement on the beaches of France. That is a choice that we want to see made and we are willing to invest in.
A breaking story for you that you haven't heard anywhere else. We had to wait until after midnight because it sounds like the government might have got serious about illegal migration. They've struck a new deal with France. Ministers are now backing major changes to the European Convention on Human Rights. What will that mean? Also tonight, are we seeing two-tier policing in Britain? Facial recognition cameras will be used at the Unite the Kingdom rally, but not at a neighbouring pro-Palestine protest. Yep, you heard it here, folks. This is The Late Show Live with Bev, only on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before.
His usual understated self there, the president in China continuing talks today, but could one key issue see the two leaders fall out? That's coming up shortly. First though, there is fury, and not just from me, over the use of facial recognition cameras being deployed this weekend at the Unite the Kingdom rally, but not at a neighbouring pro-Palestine protest. It genuinely feels like they're trolling us, doesn't it? Scotland Yard have said it's part of what they call unprecedented policing measures, as more than 50,000 people and the rest are expected to attend the march, claiming its use has been triggered by what it calls a likely threat to public safety from some individuals. We'll have a look in a minute. I'm going to show you the numbers of people who were arrested at the Unite the Kingdom rally last time. But just think about this this rally and how it's generally a lot of grannies with Union Jacks and maybe a picnic or two. And some wrong-uns. I'm not going to lie, there are some wrong-uns there. There really are. But let me just show you this clip from Fox News and ask you, are we heading for this in Britain?
There are literally cameras everywhere in Beijing. We are outside the Haidian station, and I can count at least 20 on this corner. In fact, in Beijing, they've added 1,500 cameras just this year alone. They see everything. There's nobody jaywalking here because they could get a ticket right away. In fact, our driver parked illegally for 2 minutes, and he got a message on his phone that he got a ticket for about $40 US because they saw it on the camera.
Let's talk to former Met Police Detective Peter Blexley on this issue. Peter, thank you for joining me. I've got my glasses on, my friend, because I want to just read you out some figures here. The Unite the Kingdom rally last year, they made 24 arrests. 23 were linked to the rally and 1 to the counter-protest. Compare that with the Notting Hill Carnival, where there were 443 arrests over the weekend. Why is this protest considered so dangerous, Peter, that they need facial recognition?
The Unite the Kingdom, or Unite the West, as it's also been branded, gathering this weekend, will not be a threat. It will be an overwhelmingly peaceful protest of patriotic people coming together to take to the streets of London to express their love of Britain, of England, of the nation, and everything that it stands so proudly for, its values, its tradition, its history. And we've even seen Tommy Robinson, who is often regarded as the face of these kind of gatherings, issuing some very sensible advice in the last couple of days. Don't come to cause trouble. Don't wear face masks. Behave yourselves. Absolutely right. But bearing in mind that on Saturday it is taking place alongside a pro-Palestinian march, so many of which we have seen since October the 7th, 2.5 years ago, we have seen blighted by genocidal chants, people wanting and calling for the complete extermination of a group of people simply because of their faith. These two huge events are running side by side. And I don't say this lightly, this is going to be the biggest test in the history of the Metropolitan Police to see whether, as a police service, it can deliver policing impartially, without fear or favour, fairly, equally, and we shall see. This is quite simply.
So why? Why are we having facial recognition rolled out for the people who are going to go there? It looks provocative. It looks a provocative act on behalf of the police and therefore effectively the government.
Okay, I'm a huge fan of facial recognition cameras, but there is a huge lack of understanding, unfortunately, amongst the public because the messaging has not got out there. Facial recognition is not like CCTV. It does not capture the images and retain the images of thousands of people, whether they be an innocent person or whether they be somebody who's wanted. Facial recognition cameras.
But Peter, don't you see now? But this is exactly what I've been trying to warn people about when it comes to facial recognition, because this is a targeted event for people who have certain political opinions, and that was always my worry with facial recognition when people are cheering it on, that it won't be used to catch the burglars. It'll be used to catch people who think in the wrong way. Isn't this a perfect example of that?
No, please, allow me one moment to just educate you a bit, if I may, on how facial recognition cameras work. They only
I know how they work. I know how they work.
Well, they work. They only capture the images of people who feature on wanted databases. people who are wanted for criminal
what?
offences, for anything from terrorism,
for now,
murder, for non-compliance with a community order that may have been handed down by a court, people who may be wanted for non-payment of fines, for example. It only captures the image. It only flags up somebody's face if they are on a database as a wanted individual, as a wanted person. It only recognises wanted people.
And wait until you, Peter Bleksley, are wanted because of your political opinions and that you express so beautifully on GB News every week. Then they're going to be coming for you because your face will be identified and possibly mine. And I just don't think it's a coincidence that it's this event that we're seeing it being used at, because we know that it will be people who are, as you would say, patriots on the right, whatever we want to describe that political persuasion as. These are the people who will go first.
Sir, you are not going to thank me for this, but you are falling into the pernicious Starmer trap. This is exactly what he wants people to believe, that we will be criticised, we will be criminalised for expressing our views freely and lawfully. We won't. We must push back against... We must push back against what he wants people to believe, and he's been extremely successful in this, in making people believe that our freedom of speech has been curtailed, that we can no longer express our views, that we're not allowed to offend people. We are allowed to offend, we are allowed to express our freedom of speech, and we must absolutely do that, but we must have an understanding of the law so that we don't tip over and then commit crimes. Unfortunately, speech is used by people to perniciously control people, coercively control people, to harass people, to stalk people, and that kind of thing. And that is right that arrests are made. But in terms of protecting our values, our democracy, our freedoms, we must not fall into the trap that Starmer and his government so often set, that, oh, we're being curtailed. We are not. Long live free speech. Long live the right to offend people. Do not cave in to his pernicious mindset that he wants us to believe.
I agree. But we're walking into a digital cage in which our attitudes and our thoughts and our words could see us plucked off the street. Peter, always a pleasure. Thank you so much bringing your experience. Former Met Police Detective Peter Bleksley. We've run out of time, my love. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live. It was an extraordinarily organised display that we saw today in China, but will the talks continue in a positive way? Could one explosive sticking point derail the entire trip? Also tonight.
We're Great Britain, we're England, and we don't have to rule the world, but we're England, and we're not ashamed of being England.
One of the most powerful conservative voices in the American media, Glenn Beck, has spoken exclusively to GB News with a blunt warning about what Britain is getting wrong and why the country needs to change course fast. Don't go anywhere. Quick break. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right.
GB News breakfast.
every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Let's have a quick look at how the newspapers are handling this big political storm in the UK. Let's have a look at The Guardian, because I think the left-wing press is particularly interesting at a time like this. The Guardian are leading with this. They're saying Burnham bids to topple Starmer, but he must win by-election first. Let me talk to my London panel about this now. Matt Torbit, does that suggest to you that The Guardian are backing Andy Burnham? It's a fairly flattering picture of him, you know, looking like a man of the people with his open neck jumper over his T-shirt, leaning on a car, electric car, no doubt. But, I mean, it's a factual headline, but it looks quite sympathetic to him.
I don't know, to be honest, because The Guardian was always Keir Starmer's favourite paper, and they would always go out and bat for him. Now, maybe, as we know, once the media knows your time is up, they start throwing you under the bus a little bit. And I think part of this, which is unfortunate for the public, because they're the ones that suffer, when there's this sort of Westminster drama, it is good copy for news outlets and whatever else. So I think that they're, like lots of them, sort of semi-revelling in the fact that there's going to be this high drama of, is he going to do it, is he not, is he going to be Prime Minister, is he not? So I think, I imagine The Guardian have a fairly decent relationship with Andy, but it was always Keir Starmer's paper of note, particularly during the Brexit era, where I think they backed a second referendum like him, but I can't remember now.
You know what? That is such a clever observation. That is why we pay you the big bucks, Matt Torbit. Because actually, it's not necessarily what they have used, it's what they haven't used, because the other newspapers have gone with this very compelling picture of Starmer appearing to be in jail. I don't know whether we can show either the front page of the Times has got it. It's a really unfortunate positioning. The Independent has gone big on it as well. It's the most striking image, I think, from any of the newspapers this morning. There it is. Burnham makes his move, and that looks damning. It's a terrible picture, Jonathan Liss, of the Prime Minister. The metaphor is strong, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Look, I think that everyone accepts that Starmer's days are numbered. I think that these sorts of days, Bev, are kind of manna from heaven for politicos like me. I cut my teeth in the Brexit days where we would always be kind of, when Theresa May was facing a confidence vote, we were thinking what are the different machinations, what are the different sort of permutations, what could the possible outcomes all be. And for this one, in a way, we've whittled it down to two scenarios now. The first is that Burnham wins this by-election. And he'll have, we talked about that before. That's a big ask, but if he does it, then he will, be triumphant. There is no way that he's going to lose to anyone in a Labour contest, and there's no way that Starmer would stand against him. In the scenario that you think is more likely, which is that Burnham just can't defeat this reform juggernaut, and obviously we'll hear a lot more about this in the weeks ahead, obviously. Yeah. But assuming he doesn't win that, then what happens? Then you have lesser candidates going for it. Then it gets really interesting. Does Starmer stand against Streeting? If Streeting goes up, does Rayner stand against him?
Outside.
Yeah, does Rayner go? Does Miliband go?
And I have to stand against you right now, Jonathan Liss. I'm so sorry, but you are still here for another 2 hours. We've got to take a quick break. Stay with us.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Good evening, good morning, live in Washington, DC. This is Bev for GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Well, the sharks are well and truly circling. Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has launched his bid to return to Westminster in a direct threat to the Prime Minister. But does he risk being wiped out of politics altogether because of the seat that he's chosen? Is he going to get beaten by reform?
Our ambition is to ensure that Andy Burnham is thrown out completely because, of course, he has to resign as Mayor of Greater Manchester when nominations close.
Richard Tice there from Reform talking on GB News earlier this evening, and it is a red revolt. So Keir Starmer is also rocked by the resignation of Health Secretary Wes Streeting, who's accusing the Prime Minister of failing to have a clear vision for the country. I think you'd probably agree with that. And tonight, James Murray has been rushed in to replace him. It certainly seems like loyalty pays off when it comes to this particular government, because this was James Murray on GB News Breakfast this morning.
I think having a leadership election would be the wrong choice for us to take.
A tumultuous day here in Downing Street, ending with one simple realisation. This Prime Minister will not last the Parliament.
But here in the UK, everyone is looking at the China charm offensive. Xi Jinping rolls out the red carpet as President Trump hails their relationship, one of the most consequential in world history.
The relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before.
And a migration resets. Breaking tonight, Britain and 45 other European nations are preparing to finally toughen deportation powers and change human rights laws. More on that in just a moment. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Did I just say here in the UK? I did, didn't I? Yeah.
UK, US, you know.
Sometimes I forget where I am at this time of the night because we're spending so much time talking about British news, and I miss my home country so much. But, you know, we are clearly in America if you're just finding us for the first time. And I'm delighted to say that I'm joined in the studio by Angelina Mackay is still here with me. If I forget where I am, will you remind me?
I'll remind you, Bev, don't worry.
And former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, Matt Terrell, is here. Keep me orientated.
Will do.
Do your best. And in London, that is in the UK, former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett and journalist and broadcaster Jonathan Liss. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. We've got 2 more hours to go. Right, moving on to our main news this evening. Wes Streeting has quit as Health Secretary, and former Chief Secretary to the Treasury James Murray has been appointed to that significant position. Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has fired the starting gun on his bid to become Prime Minister. He's announced he's going to try and stand in the Makerfield by-election, triggered after the, some might say, generous resignation of Labour MP Josh Simons. Let's talk now to the political strategist and podcast host Tiffany Marie Brannan about this. Tiffany, I can't believe it's only a week since those local elections in the UK in which Reform did so well, and here we are in a week. So much has happened. What do you make of it from your American perspective?
I think it's really, really interesting. I mean, I remember what Streeting's letter said about the elections, that, you know, it had allowed nationalists in every corner of our country to gain power. And looking at it from our perspective, what we're seeing, in my opinion, is a new red wave. And I think hope, you know, probably much to Jonathan Liss's chagrin, for change in the United Kingdom. I think looking at Burnham has identified as a socialist since he was 15 years old, when he first declared himself a member of the Labour Party and Labour ideologies. There's nothing that could be more dangerous than someone who's always a bridesmaid but never a bride, right? Because he was a former MP for 16 years, you know, let's not forget he's the former Shadow Home Secretary after he finished second after Corbyn back in like 2017. And so I think that this is a man that we're seeing kind of who always wanted to be in power and always wanted to kind of lead Europe and lead the United Kingdom into more socialism. And from our perspective, we're just going to say now, you know, we're ahead of the game over here, and it doesn't work. It doesn't play. Socialism fails 100% of the time. And reform, I really believe, is the only way forward for the United Kingdom. And I think most Americans who are looking over across the pond and are seeing what's happening, you know, they can fight it. Labour can fight it as much as they want, but the red wave seems to be coming.
What do you think of this? And also, just to be clear, when you say the red wave, you mean a Republican wave, whereas actually in the UK, our Conservatives are blue, the Labour is red, and Reform is actually turquoise. So maybe you're describing a turquoise wave. In fact, you've got Reform colours right behind you. It's very nice.
Thank you. No, that's so true.
It's a sort of duck-egg blue.
Wave. Yeah, no, that's so true. I do forget that.
Yeah, exactly. But what do you think of this, the fact that Andy Burnham has chosen this seat in the northwest of England to go and stand in? This is, of course, it was a Labour seat. That's why the Labour MP can step aside. But in the local elections last week, Reform got 50% of the vote, and I think Labour got about 25% of the vote, and the rest went to other parties. At the moment, Reform is very, very strong in that particular area. The suggestion by Matt Torbett tonight is that Andy Burnham deliberately chose this seat so that it didn't look like he was taking the easy option. But do you think that will be lost on most British people?
I worry that it will be, because I fear that there's been so much burnout. I mean, that happened here, and that's happened here, especially in the last 6 months. I think you look at what's been going on with Reform. It's been going on the same amount of time as our, reignition of the Donald Trump's administration was going on. And people now are getting burnt out politically and are not paying attention to the details. And that's really a shame, because apathy is the most dangerous thing of all, where they don't necessarily understand what optics are and how so much of this is very carefully strategized by PR teams, by political players who see the opportunity and see what it will look like and see what it will play out as strategically, and that it might be lost on the average, the average voter. So I do think that that is something that might be lost.
It's very interesting, the idea of apathy versus determination, I suppose you might say, because what we saw at the local elections and what we will see in this constituency is that drive from the Reform voters for change. Now, there's a comparison between the UK and the US, Tiffany, because that's very much what happened here before the last election, isn't it?
Exactly. But you see the split where it's almost like those that are on the conservative side, they really are ignited and they really are, excited and energized to help change occur, to make it a tangible reality, because they do love their country. They do love Britain. They do want to save her. They do want her to be great again. And those on the left, they seem to cling on to identity politics in such a way that it doesn't really matter who the players are, just as long as the players are wearing the right uniforms. And that is so incredibly dangerous, because it becomes this massive groupthink, and where they will still show up to vote, but as we know from this election, they will not be coming out in the strength as those who actually believe in something to their core and aren't just going along with it because it has a Labour, identification tag along with it.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether Reform based their branding on the colour of your eyes, Tiffany. Because they are absolutely
you're so
stunning.
Sweet. Thank you.
Your Reform-coloured eyes. Thank you so much, podcast host Tiffany Marie Brannan there. Do you know what I mean, Matt Terrell?
What do you mean?
Yeah, she's got lovely eyes, hasn't she?
Lovely eyes.
Sorry, I put you on the spot. Right, moving on. Let's talk to my panel here about, maybe we'd talk about that comparison with the UK. No, let's not talk about Tiffany's eyes. That comparison, Angelina, between the UK and the US when it came to the last election. The right, the Republicans, the red wall, as it is here, we have to use these terms to explain it because it is a little different in the UK, was incredibly incentivised to get Trump back in the White House. Do you recognise that that is essentially what's pushing this wave of reform success in the UK, and what is behind that?
I mean, it's hard to say, right? There was chaos a bit with right-wing politics in the UK government before Starmer stepped in. So, and also how British politics, it operates very differently than US politics. I don't think that people were urgently trying to get Trump back into office. I think that our options back in that election were very limited. Like, Biden clearly wasn't suited for office, and then they just pushed Kamala Harris onto us without any kind of democratic due process. Now, Now, that made a lot of people angry in America and pushed people to the Republican Party. Another big issue that pushed people to the Republican Party was AIPAC and the war in the Middle East. So you have these two things that people were really upset about with the Biden administration that pushed them over to Trump. Now, a lot of people were warning, too. People were warning that, hey, voting for the red party won't necessarily make these problems go away. And, of course, they haven't really. They've exacerbated issues in different ways. But it was better than the alternative, and people wanted change. So I don't even think that our country necessarily is really pushing for a red wave. They're just pushing for change.
Interesting. Matt Torbett, what do you think is behind the Reform success in the local elections when we look to what happened a week ago?
I think there's a real sense of unfairness. I think that's clear for people to see. I think the things that people seem to pick up on doorsteps or in the focus groups is social housing, who is getting it, who isn't. Obviously an unfairness, even amongst people who are here legally, about those that are coming here illegally. You know, they came here and played by the rules, but you've got people coming over across on the boats. Why are they not doing it the way I did? And a sort of real resentment there between different sets of immigrants. I think Wes Streeting, again, talking today about his success with the NHS wait lists. Politics is about a feeling, and I think you ask anybody that's been in an A&E unit in the last 12 months, they'll go, I've not noticed any difference, unfortunately. And I think it's largely about the way the economy's been. We don't have a very shock-proof economy because we don't have an industry. So I don't think we've quite recovered from 2008. The economy took anywhere between a 4 to 9% GDP hit with Brexit. And then we've had COVID. So I think people are really feeling it more than they have in generations at the moment. And people are looking for alternatives. You have the Greens on one side that are bleeding support from Labour, offering a sort of progressive message. And you've got Reform who are, I suppose, threatening in a Trump-like way to sort of either smash up the system or radically, drastically change it from anything you've ever seen so far.
Well, the tragedy, of course, is that Nigel Farage was the architect, one of the main architects of that hammering of GDP, which is a slow puncture that we will never fully be able to quantify because we can't prove a counterfactual. Every single respected economist pretty much, and economic organisation puts that figure that Matt's just said about the hit to GDP. But obviously we can't go back in a time machine and live an alternate reality where we didn't leave the EU and prove that that investment that left or never came would have come. We just have to rely on the forecast and the experts telling us, yes, it is a slow puncture to our economy, and the people who punctured it are now coming back to say, oh yeah, your lives are still rubbish, and here, and here's a host of new scapegoats to blame, like immigrants, for example, and they were never punished electorally for selling that pop to the British people. And on the contrary, it looks as though Nigel Farage is going to be rewarded for it. And that is what I find the most galling about this whole thing. There was a time when Reform was down and out after Brexit. No one cared about Reform. It looked like it was like
I think we've lost
party.
Jonathan, we just want to fix. Our viewers may not be pleased to know this, but we just got to fix your mic. Your mic's just gone, so let's just get somebody in there to fix it. Matt, let me come to you on that response to Jonathan, because whenever Jonathan talks about the harms of Brexit, it's almost like he forgets that actually we had flipping pandemic was straight after Brexit, so it's impossible to know what acts of self-harm, what that did to us after Brexit.
Yeah, look, no question. And look, I don't think this is that complicated what's going on in the UK right now. With respect to, Keir Starmer, look, it comes down to really two main issues: illegal migration, small boat crossings, and then energy costs skyrocketing. You look back at these elections where Reform did very well, it comes down really to those two core issues. And, we talk about President Trump. Look, President Trump kind of kickstarted this whole thing. He won in 2004 or 2024 based on the fact that people were upset with the border. They were upset with inflation, energy costs. What do we see today? A secure border here in the United States under President Trump. What do we see today? Costs coming down. Granted, gas prices have been going up due to Iran, but those will come back down. What do we see today? The United States energy independent. Those are the things that, frankly, the UK needs to be talking about. And congratulations to you, Bev, on asking President Trump, why did this matter? What's going on in the UK? And his point was very simple. Illegal immigration, energy, that's what's driving this. There are similarities here to 2024 and what's taking place right now in the UK. And look, I don't think it's all that complicated in terms of what the voters want.
Yeah, Angelina, what do you make of that assessment? Because I did speak to the President this week and he did say exactly like Matt's just said, two key issues. If you can bring your energy prices down, prices come down for everybody. We have 3 or 4 times our electricity on our gas bills in the UK than what you guys pay here, and you guys still think you're paying a lot.
Yeah, we do think we're paying a lot comparatively. So I would say that the prices aren't necessarily still affordable here. Yes, it's different and scaled differently, but it's not necessarily affordable, right? I think that, you know, what I've noticed talking a lot about UK politics and with you guys is that the Mendelsohn mess really was a big...
How easy we forget.
That was a really big pitfall for him. So no matter where, I mean, yeah, you're right, that COVID and like there were a lot of other factors that played into the UK's economy and economic standing, but it was really Mendelsohn that really, I think the cracks started to break in the party.
Yeah, well, the cracks started to break for Starmer with Mendelsohn. How easily we forget. That was really where this all started to unravel for him.
Yeah, no question. I agree 100% with both of you in terms of the Madison component being forgotten so easily.
Yeah.
But, you know, if we really are honest about it, you know, voters care about the Madison situation, but they care more about their own pocketbooks. And, you know, when you see the issue of those skyrocketing energy costs, when you see the issues taking place with the UK not having what the United States has right now in true energy independence, you know, that matters. And then obviously border security. People care deeply about safety and security, and you have a border crisis right now taking place where you really don't know who's coming in across the border, particularly through these small boat dynamics. But on top of that, I also think that there is just a feeling in the UK right now where they feel down and out. And that's how we felt in the United States, at least I did, under President Biden. And so I think it comes down to leadership. And, you know, what President Trump has done is gotten people across America to believe in America once again. I think UK is desperate for that, and I think there's that culture component taking place right here, right now in the UK as well.
Did you feel down and out under Biden, and now do you feel uplifted under Trump?
I feel down and out under both of them, honestly. Like, I don't think that Trump has really opened up any more opportunities for me. You know, student loans are still... yeah, that's true. But that's because of you, Bev Turner. I wouldn't give Trump that credit.
Well, the thing is, you can joke about that, but actually the fact that President Trump is so interesting to the rest of the world is precisely why GBNews is in this town, because those are the sorts of reverberations which occur around that man. He has brought a British news channel to open our first international bureau into this city. So you do owe him a debt of gratitude.
I mean, look, it is a bit different, right? You look at the job market, I don't necessarily want to be a freelancer. I'm out here hustling as a freelancer. I would love a contract at a private corporation, things that used to exist that I don't necessarily have right now.
But didn't they disappear under Biden?
They've been disappearing for years. I think that's the trajectory of the market, right? So I think part of that has to do with it's more complicated and convoluted than just who's in power, right? It has to do with the deconstruction of labor unions, how corporations treat people versus the rights. Like even now, like the workers are getting less and less rights. I saw that one massive company recently cut out maternity leave. The corporations right now know that it's their market. It's no longer a market for the worker. And so they're leveraging that. Wages are stagnant. Like there isn't opportunity for job growth. So things are very, very at a standstill.
Well, what you just described is this technocratic vision. And I know Jonathan List gets cross with me when I use the word globalist, but what Angelina's just described there is this globalist view of the world where workers' rights are undermined, where why would you employ somebody here in Washington in a call center when you could employ someone in India? Why would you employ someone in Sheffield to pick up the phones for an insurance company when you can employ somebody over in China? This is the problem, isn't it, Matt? And Jonathan, let me come to you because your mic broke down.
Well, I think what you're identifying is globalization, and there are obviously with all modern trends, there may be good things and negative consequences attached to that. So globalization has made the United States incredibly rich, and it also meant that the United States was able to prioritize sort of high-level manufacturing, that means that even the poorest states have a higher GDP in most cases than the United Kingdom per capita. Now, obviously, that doesn't really equate like for like, because people in Mississippi go bankrupt if they get sick, a lot of them, if they don't have insurance. Obviously, that would never happen in the United Kingdom. Even people in rich estates go bankrupt if they get sick, or even have to have a baby, things like that, which obviously, so you can't really quantify it in the same way. And one of the strange things about the tariff discussion a few months ago was that all countries, like Bangladesh, for example, that make so much clothing and export to the United States, are going to be hit with tariffs, which suggested that Trump wanted to bring back sort of sock manufacturing to the United States, which obviously most economists in the United States say was a bad idea, because the United States should be prioritising things like AI and sort of high tech and all the rest of it. So, of course, there are winners and losers of globalisation, and I think it's incumbent on the left in particular, the people who care about working people. I'm not saying the right doesn't care about it, they know care about it in a slightly different way, but the people who care about working people, not only in our country but across the world, to make sure that that process is fair and that people are not exploited for their labour. That is the key thing. Very few people are arguing that all countries should manufacture the same things, that there should be, that the wages in Bangladesh should be the same as the wages in the United States, for example. That's not the world that we live in. What people are asking for is a fairness and for people not to be exploited in the labour that they produce.
I mean, President Trump would say that he wants to bring back manufacturing. They want to start making their own socks, and they're not going to be afraid to do so. That's what he wants to do here, Matt. Is that not what we should see in the UK, Matt Torbett? Is it not that we should be making our own socks and our own stuff again?
I have longed for an industrial strategy from any government for the last 40 years. We've largely deindustrialised post-1980s and Margaret Thatcher because she sold a lot of things off. So we don't make anything anymore. We just put things in boxes and send them around the world. We're an 86% service-based economy. We're a country full of sort of Pretts and Amazons, and that's the sort of thing. I think AI is obviously something we should probably be looking towards, and I think we've probably already missed the boat with America and China anyway in some level of industry. I just think the problem is people can do it cheaper now. I think when Donald Trump's tariffs started being floated, if you were to buy the same Harley Davidson in America compared to picking it up in Denmark compared to Thailand, you're going to pay 4 times the amount. They just do things cheaper. Unfortunately, that is probably one of the side effects of globalisation.
There's the point, though, isn't it, that whenever you have a US clothing manufacturer, or for example, or even a British one, that so proudly says made in the United States, and the menswear guy, Derek Guy on Twitter, is always sort of giving these examples. You either dig into it and discover that it wasn't fully made in the United States, or you have very rare examples of companies that did choose to make things exclusively in the United States with US fabric, US cotton, etc. And guess what? People don't want to buy it because it's 4 times the price, because it costs a lot more money to get the materials, a lot more money to pay for them because the wages are so much higher. People don't want it. So when you're talking about globalization, Bev, people are not paying. People are paying with their copybooks, as Matt said a second ago. People aren't paying with ideology. And when it comes down to it, if we're faced with 2 identical products, we're going to choose the one that's 4 times cheaper, not knowing, provided we are assured that people have not been exploited in the production of that garment or whatever. If we are assured that that's a fair process and we have the safeguards in place, obviously no one, unless they are Matt's millionaires, is going to choose the one that's 4 times the price. That's just not how human nature works.
All right. Let me know your thoughts at home this evening. What do you think? We are asking you, is Labour's civil war bad for Britain? You can take part in the poll by scanning the QR code on your screen now, if you are so inclined, or you can visit gbnews.com/you decide. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live. That's the White House's very cinematic footage from the visit to China today. Those crucial talks will continue. It's nearly 8:30 in the morning over in China. We might be starting to see President Trump appear soon. Could one explosive sticking point derail the entire trip, though? We're going to discuss that also tonight.
Between 2021 and 2024, we saw over 2.6 million more people enter this country than leave it.
News that is hot off the press. Major changes could be coming to the Human Rights Act, allowing Britain to finally get a grip on its borders. That news is very current. It is just broken. You'll be hearing it all day, but you've heard it here first, because that's what we do. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. No adverts. Still surprises me. There's no adverts. Right, the chief executive of Blaze Media and former Fox News presenter Glenn Beck has expressed his alarm that both Britain and the United States are heading down a troubling path regarding fundamental freedoms, especially free speech. Speaking exclusively to GB News Originals, he says that Britain is down, but not out. Have a listen to what he had to say.
You say you're cautiously optimistic about the future of my country and your country. What are the kind of clues that you'd be looking for to say, OK, yeah, I think we're on the right track here, we're back?
Stop putting people in jail for speaking their mind. You know, I hate to speak for your country and to try to tell you what to do, because I so respect. And America, you know, I'm here because my father died. When my father died, I'm not the same man I was when my dad was alive, and I try to be better. But my father is important. You are family to us. You die, we're not the same. We're just not the same ever again. We need you to be strong. We want you to be strong, and I think the key is just remembering who you are. People have done so much work to get us to forget or be ashamed of who we are. All nations have made mistakes. All nations have been bad at times, okay? Are you getting better or not? Are you striving to be, as our Constitution says, a more perfect nation? You're never going to be perfect. Are you still striving to be a more perfect nation? When you start to say, you know what, we're Great Britain, we're England, and we don't have to rule the world, but we're England, and we're not ashamed of being England. And yes, we have laws, and yes, we expect certain things, because that's our culture. I don't denigrate your culture, but this is ours, and we're proud of it. That's when I know you'll be on the right track.
Joining me now is Nick Dunning, who did that interview for GB News, the editor of GB News Originals with Glenn Beck. Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Just tell our audience, because a lot of them will have no idea who that is. Who is Glenn Beck, and why does his opinion matter?
Glenn Beck is like the original news commentator. He started out at Fox News. He had the biggest show there. Then he left and started the Blaze News. And he has one of the biggest radio shows in America. He broadcasts for 3 hours a day, all alone, out of Dallas. And he's got, I think he's in the top 5 of all US radio shows.
And he's known very much for being what, Nicholas? Like an outspoken conservative commentator?
He's definitely a conservative commentator, but he's also more old school. I'd say he's slightly different to the way that maybe Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens conduct themselves. His religion is very important to him, and his politics. But yeah, I would say that he's very much popular with sort of the older generation than the kind of people that are out now, like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson.
And what was surprising to you about what he said, or maybe entirely as you predicted? What were the standout comments for you?
For me, I think sometimes it strikes me how much Americans really care about the state of free speech in Britain. And it's not so much the way that maybe the way we look at issues in America, where our fear normally is how will it affect us. You know, our problems don't really affect America that much, but they seem to care. And I asked him about this, and he said it's because of the love and respect that he feels for our country. But an analogy he made that I think many of our viewers here might connect with is the analogy he used for the relationship between the UK and the US is one like a parent and a child. And he said that when his father died, he'd never been the same since. And if Britain were to cease to exist as we knew it and wasn't the US's ally anymore, the US would be okay, but it wouldn't be the same, and it would be poorer for it. And I thought that was heartwarming. I think a lot of our viewers who watch us at GB News are very concerned about the way the world sees us right now. You know, we're a country where in the last 2 years, as we revealed yesterday, 16,000 people were arrested for speech-related issues. This news goes around the world. We were a country that was once associated with Houses of Commons, the Magna Carta, freedom, liberty. I went on a work trip last month to Armenia, and one of my contacts I met, the first thing he said to me when we sat down for dinner was, "Is it true they're locking people up in the UK for free speech?"
I hear it here all the time, Nick. It's constantly people are asking me that question in the US. It's almost like people are feeling it in other countries more than the average person on the street in the UK is feeling it. And that's not to say that people outside of the UK are wrong, because we have got a sense of people being self-censored. But is that the problem? Is it that Brits have become so used to it now that there's a lot of self-censorship going on? We've kind of become the boiled frogs and we've accepted it.
We're a polite people, aren't we? And we want to be subtle. We don't really want to go too far with things. The Americans are much more confident being a bit more brash. And I said this to Glenn when I went on his show a little while ago, and he just laughed. But it's true, isn't it? We want to be kind, we want to be good people, but I think sometimes that gets taken advantage of. And with social media now, I think it's so difficult because no one wants to get in trouble, do they? But you know, as Glenn said, the most important thing is that we need to stand up for ourselves peacefully, but we need to say, look, you know, we're Brits and we stand for freedom and we believe in freedom of speech and we want it back.
Yeah, you might be asking the wrong person there when you said nobody likes to get in trouble, do they? I think if you're not slightly on someone's watch list, you're doing something wrong in this business, Nicholas. I do wonder whether that's, though, because there may be a slight generational gap as well. You know, you sat down with Glenn Beck there. You said, you know, he's a sort of elder statesman, if you like, of the conservative podcast space. You're an up-and-coming newbie. What do you think about when you're concerned about free speech? Like, do you feel that you've been raised through an education system which has very much indoctrinated you? And I know you're resistant to that, Nick, but has tried to teach you, don't say that, or the phrase, you can't say that?
Again, Bev, I think you might be asking me the wrong question there. I tend to believe in if something's true, then it should be acceptable to say. It's true that when I went to uni, there was a very stifling atmosphere. I remember my first lecture, we had a Greek lecturer, and he said, anyone in this room who voted for Brexit, put your hands up. And so we all duly did. And he made the rest of the room boo at us. And that's the situation we live in. But at the end of the day, there's always been persecution of people who think differently to the mainstream. And I think the most important thing is to, as I said, speak your truth. And if there are consequences, we've got to suffer them at the end of the day, because otherwise the bullies win.
And you made the rest of the room boo at you for voting Brexit. What would you say the split was percentage-wise of your group? How many of you had voted for Brexit?
Oh, I think there was 5 of us, and there might have been a room of 130 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, where are they now, Nicholas Dunn? That's what I want to say to you, Nicholas Dunning. Where are they now? Where are those losers now? You're here on international TV, having interviewed Glenn Beck. So good for you and your backbone, my friend. Where can people see the interview?
That will be out on GB News Originals playlist on the GB News YouTube tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time.
Fantastic. We will be watching it in full. Nicholas Dunning, thank you so much for joining us and for having that courage to say what you think. Oh, do you know, it warms the cockles of my heart to see a young person say that they don't mind being unpopular and saying something that might get them into trouble, Matt.
You know what? I can relate.
You what?
I said I can relate.
Yeah, well, quite. Maybe we all can relate in some way. Jonathan, were you watching this and thinking, well, that's great that they booed him. Good for him. What an excellent teacher for shaming those Brexiteers.
No, I don't think that students should be booed for their votes, Bev. But you voted to Remain, Bev. So you're one of those losers that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's wrong.
Yeah,
I think that's wrong.
But it's awful that that universities are particularly indoctrinating this mindset now that there is one way to think, and everybody else who doesn't think in that particular way is not only wrong but also a bad person. Angelina,
yes.
When Nicholas was saying there about the fact that a lot of people look at the UK and the first thing they say when they hear a British accent is, "Oh, your country's in trouble, isn't it? What's going on with free speech?" Can you relate to that?
I mean, it is really hard. You obviously, it's not okay to berate someone for their political beliefs. You should approach it with some kind of formal understanding. But I would say it happens on the left and the right. Look at our president, like language sets culture. And look at our president right now. Any kind of decorum that the U.S. presidency ever had is completely out the window at this point. And that's kind of the state of politics. So we live in a society.
I think decorum is very overrated.
We live in a society where you are going to be harassed for your political beliefs, no matter what side of the aisle you are on.
Well, is that the Matt Torbett? Let me come to you. I mean, I'm sort of being a bit flippant with Angelina there about the fact that decorum is overrated. I don't see a lack of decorum in President Trump. I see a phenomenally fearless transparency. He doesn't care who he upsets. You know exactly what he thinks, Matt Torbett. Do you admire it or do you detest it?
It's tricky. You have to maybe separate the art from the artist in this instance, if that's what we're doing. I think onto the broader aspects of freedom of speech, the thing that concerns me, listen, we've had our issues. I think people potentially abusing things like non-crime hate incidents, and I think trying to police offence can be quite tricky. Shabana Mahmood's obviously got rid of those because they were clogging up the system, it seems. But then on the flip side, America holds itself as the land of the free and freedom of speech advocates and all the rest of it, which I think, you know, I'm a believer in freedom of speech. But at the same time, we're seeing the sort of politicisation of the FCC and Brendan Carr going after comedians for telling jokes, which we've had in this country in many ways.
So that's the equivalent of Ofcom, just for people who don't know the FCC is.
Yeah, the Federal Communications Commission,
of
which is like America's Ofcom, but they're looking at broadcast licenses. They want to be talking about DEI at Disney and stuff like that. And it feels to me a little bit like government overreach, which I don't think is very American, really. And it's happening under President Trump's watch. It's quite concerning. And at the same time, we have football fans that I know going to watch the World Cup having to declare their social media handles on their Esters. What's that all about?
A lot of left-wingers are not going to be able to get Esters if they've, insulted President Trump online. Sort of President Trump
I very much doubt that. They need to sell those World Cup tickets.
He is suing journalists. We have literally James. He's literally calling. The thing with Trump is that he makes the job of his opponents so much easier because he says everything in plain sight. You don't need to do investigative journalism to find out the impeachable offences or the offences against free speech because he just is so open about it. He's literally calling. He's literally calling for his opponents to be jailed. James Comey being identified, indicted for writing 8647.
Well, did you prefer Biden and the Biden family, which was to get away with all sorts of things? You did, because Hunter Biden's laptop, would you not have rather that had been revealed?
If you talk about the Hunter Biden laptop thing, and then you look at what Trump does on a daily basis, every single day there's an offence that's 50 times the magnitude of Hunter Biden's laptop. I mean, right now...
Have you seen Hunter Biden's laptop? Yeah. I've got a hard copy of it. I've seen it. I'll lend it. I'll drop it into the office for you.
Private parts, Bev.
To piggyback off that too.
Well, exactly, but there's nothing similar. There's literally nothing similar with President Trump's
It's a different story.
There's Stormy Daniels.
He takes his kids on Air Force One, his son-in-law negotiating with Iran when he has business interests in Saudi Arabia. The corruption is off the scale.
Hang on, Jonathan. Go on, Matt.
There's nothing wrong with your family on Air Force One. I mean, Barack Obama had his family flying Air Force One. President Biden had his family flying Air Force One. First of all, Hunter Biden was pardoned by his father. Okay, so we want to talk about justice. I do not believe justice was served there. Hang on. You talk. Let me talk now. So on top of that, look, President Trump has been trying to allow freedom of speech in this country. There are many Americans under President Biden who feel like they didn't have freedom of speech in this country. And by the way, if you talk to groups like Turning Point USA, they felt like they're being investigated unfairly and attacked unfairly by the government under President Biden. What we're seeing in the UK right now is something that Americans are very concerned about. We talked at the top of this about freedom of speech. That matters. So thankfully, President Trump is allowing that in this country. That's something we should all champion.
Yeah, I think so. Should we moving on? How am I doing for time in London? We are moving on, apparently. But more of that. OK, you can watch that exclusive interview with Glenn Beck on GB News Originals on the GB News YouTube channel, or scan the QR code on your screen now. There's a QR code coming any minute. Or you can, if it isn't there, I don't like QR codes. Go to our oh, here we go, brace yourself. Oh, look, you've got to look at all of us. There's me and Neil at the end, marvellous. You can get your phone out and scan the QR code on your phone. That will take you to the interview with Glenn Beck, exclusive interview, some interesting observations about the UK from an American conservative perspective. If you don't want to do that, you can probably find it on the app, or you can go to our website, visit gbnews.com. And also, like I say, YouTube is also a good place to find our videos. Right, let's have a quick look at some of the other news here in America this evening. Now, this is a breaking story. I want to know a bit more about this. The chief of the US Customs and Border Patrol has announced that he is resigning. He's told Fox News that his departure is effective immediately. Michael Banks had been in the role since Donald Trump's return to the White House. Maybe it's because he's cured the issue at the border. Maybe there's nothing else to do. Elsewhere, Canada could join the Eurovision Song Contest. Oh, the North American country has reportedly been in talks for more than a year. How does it take a year to talk about whether you enter a song contest? As Prime Minister Mark Carney says he wants to forge closer ties with Europe. Oh my word, they're welcome to each other. And the former mayor of a small Kansas town, Jose Ceballos Almendares, who is a Mexican green card holder and pleaded guilty last month in connection with illegally voting in several elections, has turned himself in to Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Chase County. And the boss of artificial intelligence company OpenAI, Sam Altman, has insisted that he is an honest and trustworthy business person. His comments follow Elon Musk's claim that he moved to steal the company and turn it from a charity into a capitalist venture. The two tech bros are currently at the centre of a court battle over the firm behind ChatGPT. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
The relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before.
President Trump today declaring America's relationship with China is the strongest in the world. But will he be able to secure a crucial trade deal? This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A chilly feel again out there today, a fresh end to what's been a fairly cold week, but with a bit more sunshine, not as many showers and lighter winds. Overall, a slightly warmer feeling by this afternoon. But the breeze is still coming down from the north and still bringing plenty of showers over northern Scotland, a sprinkling for Northern Ireland. Some showers this morning for the Midlands and Wales, and they'll drift into southern counties of England perhaps this afternoon. So some showers, yes, but not as intense, not as many as the past couple of days. A bit more sunshine and lighter winds. So although temperatures are still a touch below average, it will feel perhaps a little warmer than the past couple of days. It will be quite cold, though, if you are heading out this evening, and still, particularly on the roads across the southeast, there could be quite a lot of spray and surface water from the scattering of showers here. Elsewhere, though, many places dry to end Friday. 1 or 2 showers feeding in off the Irish Sea into Cumbria, perhaps, and showers throughout the day into northern Scotland, fed in by that breeze. Still coming down from the north, still quite noticeable, but not as strong as recent days. Well, the winds are easing and the skies are clearing. It's going to turn quite cold quite quickly on Friday night, so bear that in mind if you're heading out. And something for gardeners to bear in mind as well, because as we go through the early hours, those temperatures are going to get pretty close to freezing. Towns and cities may hold up at 4 or 5 degrees above freezing, but certainly in rural spots, not far off zero to start the weekend. Frost likely across Scotland, northern England, but even further south, pockets of frost are possible through Wales and even southern England. Shouldn't be too frosty in Northern Ireland because more cloud will come in here. That'll make for a grey day tomorrow with some outbreaks of rain. Some of that will trickle into western Scotland, parts of Wales through the day. Ahead of it, the odd shower, but a good chunk of the Midlands, eastern and northern England, much of eastern Scotland staying dry and bright for most of the day. Temperature-wise, a little bit higher as well, just starting to tick up and signs of things getting a bit warmer as we go into next week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Between 2021 and 2024, we saw over 2.6 million more people enter this country than leave it.
Brand new news for you tonight. The government is poised to agree to major changes to how human rights laws are interpreted, which could finally see Britain get a grip on the border, or will it? Details on that in just a moment. First, though, China has rolled out the red carpet for President Trump in Beijing, staging an elaborate state banquet beneath the giant chandeliers of the Great Hall of the People, with senior officials and some of the biggest names in American business in attendance. There they are, all looking ever so jolly. President Trump also gave the following remarks.
This bond of commerce and respect that stretches back 250 years is the foundation for a future that benefits both of our nations. The American and Chinese people share much in common. We value hard work, we value courage and achievement, we love our families, and we love our countries. Together we have the chance to draw on these values to create a future of greater prosperity, cooperation, and happiness. I'd now like to raise a glass and propose a toast to the rich and enduring ties between the American and Chinese people. It's a very special relationship, and I want to thank you again. This has been an amazing period of time. Thank you, President Xi.
President Trump at his most polite there. So Xi Jinping has also described President Trump's visit as historic, calling on both countries to be partners rather than rivals. And during private talks earlier in the day, Xi reportedly warned that disputes over Taiwan could push US-China relations into what he called an extremely dangerous situation. Joining me now in the studio to discuss this is Washington Bureau Chief at Breitbart News, Matthew Boyle. Matthew, thank you.
Great to be here.
For joining us. What does he mean, do you think, when he says that US-China relations could be in a dangerous position? Explain that to my audience.
Well, look, the Chinese Communist Party has long wanted to claim Taiwan to be theirs, dating back to the original history of the Republic of China, the old government moving there at the end of their civil war. So they've long wanted it. It's something that they've been after for a while. The U.S. position has been clear on this for decades. The U.S. position hasn't changed with the president and his team over there. Of course, the Chinese are going to push for it. Of course, the U.S. is going to push back. I don't see anything changing on this front at this point.
President Trump has quite a lot on at the moment, particularly in terms of Iran. He's not going to want to poke this hornet's nest, is he?
I don't think so, but I don't think the Chinese want to poke it either, right? Like taking an island isn't that very easy. Look at look at what Vladimir Putin's going through right now with Ukraine, several years on. And they've gotten, what, a few counties, right?
Yeah.
Like not that far into Ukraine. So the taking an island is a whole different story. The U.S. has been providing weaponry to the Taiwanese for a long time. Again, it just doesn't seem like it's going to change anytime soon.
And it looks even less likely, having seen these very convivial images from China today and also tomorrow, as it will be. They'll be. It's now 8:45 in the morning in Beijing, so they will be getting up and having breakfast. And we're seeing the images here. It's a very specific vibe, isn't it? A Chinese banquet like this. I'm sort of entertained by how far away they sit from each other. I mean, there must be some tradition behind that.
I'm not sure on the traditions in China. I've been to Taiwan. I went to Taiwan in President Trump's first term. I haven't been to China on the mainland. But I will say, again, it does feel like that it's been a very warm reception for President Trump there.
Yeah.
But I don't think much change is coming out of this in terms of the geopolitical struggle. You mentioned that Xi Jinping would like to see us be partners, not rivals. I don't know if that's going to necessarily be the case. I think the U.S. and China are in a struggle this century for which nation, which civilization is going to really set the stage for the world. I mean, we talk about the Strait of Hormuz right now. That's one waterway in the world. There are dozens of other waterways that are important. There's obviously the Taiwan Strait, the South China Sea. There's the Panama Canal. We've had a lot of talk about that. I've gone to Greece multiple times over the last year. The U.S. is funding a port in Greece, so is China. So who's going to control the seas? Who's going to control trade? I don't think that stuff's getting solved this weekend or this week.
And the big issue, of course, between these two countries is the dollar, right? The power of the dollar compared to the BRICS currencies. Will that have been discussed, or will it be discussed, or is that something that both countries are just trying to work out and grapple with themselves?
Well, look, I don't think the Chinese want to admit the power of the dollar. They're trying to influence, they're trying to spread their currency around the world. They're using the Belt and Road Initiative to try to spread their influence everywhere they possibly can. They have a totally devalued currency. It's totally warped and upside down. We're not going to solve that issue this week.
Yeah.
Like, it's, again, this is what I say here is that this was a very warm meeting for both sides, and it's the first of many, by the way. So President Trump has invited President Xi here to the United States later this year.
Yeah, September.
And then there are big multilateral gatherings in November and December in China and in the U.S. So you're going to continue to see the warmness between the two of them personally, but that doesn't change the geopolitical struggles between the two sides. And I don't think that you're going to solve that stuff in this bilateral setting or, you know, a handful of other future ones. It's going to be a long-term fight between the two countries.
Matthew, how worried would Trump's team have been about the security around an event like this?
Well, look, I mean, the president has faced numerous threats to his life, serious ones from
in this country, the irony.
Yeah, and just a few weeks ago, of course, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So, and I saw some reports just not that long ago that there were some tensions between the Chinese police in Beijing and the U.S. Secret Service. You know, any kind of a time when the President of the United States is traveling abroad, they're oftentimes at the mercy of the local authorities and whatnot. So this is a very risky thing. President Trump has faced very serious threats to his life. But I think the president's in good hands. I trust the Secret Service. They're very good at what they do. I know a lot of those guys. They're really awesome. So I've dealt with many of them as I've interviewed the president, and they're very professional.
There isn't another country, though, with whom maybe America has such a sort of reciprocal relationship when it comes to, like, espionage, is what I'm thinking. Will they be checking all the bags for listening devices when they get on Air Force One?
Well, I think you got to be very careful with regard to China in that front. And I hope that all the American side brought all burner sets, right? Like
even the journalists have gone with burner phones.
You got to have. If you're an American journalist and you're going to China, you can't bring your regular phones because they'll hack all the data and everything, and they'll use anything and everything they possibly can against you. And the Chinese have been known to do this repeatedly, so it's just not. They're not a trustworthy partner here, right? Like, you can't work with them like you can with our, European friends. We have our disagreements with certain European friends. It is what it is. With China, it is an adversarial relationship, but it's one of respect too. So, and I think that's what this meeting shows, is that Xi Jinping respects President Trump. President Trump respects Xi Jinping in China.
I think that seems to be the case from what we've seen. I was hoping we might get more instances of lots of journalists sticking their microphones under President Trump's face like he does on a lot of his visits, but that is not the case here, is it? We will see him, no doubt, when he gets back on Air Force One tomorrow. He'll do a gaggle with the press. What would you expect him to say on that journey home tomorrow?
Well, again, I think you're going to see he's going to speak very highly of his friend Xi Jinping. They get along personally very well, and that's abundantly clear. But to your point too, by the way, I think that's another example of the difference between the two worlds. In China, they don't have freedom of the press. They don't have the systems they don't have private companies. They don't have private ownership. There's no such thing there. It's a communist nation, and so Xi Jinping doesn't do interviews, right? Like President Trump does. I wish he did. By the way, I've offered it to the Chinese. I hope that they do it. I've interviewed half dozen world leaders over the last year. So if they are watching, which they probably are,
I'm sure they are.
I'm sure they are. I would love to sit down with President Xi. That being said, I don't expect him to ever do it, right? But President Trump does. I've interviewed President Trump multiple times. He's very open honest with the press. And so he'll tell you what he really thinks. He'll say what really happened in that room. And so I hope we get to clarity
Which is
from the
why
president.
I look forward to his plane journey home tomorrow. We certainly have some questions from the British political situation we'd like to know what he thinks of at the moment. But Matthew, thank you so much. Matthew Boyle there, Washington Bureau Chief at Breitbart. More to come in the next hour, including this.
What we want to see is more law enforcement on the beaches of France. That is a choice that we want to see made, and we are willing to invest in.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A chilly feel, again, out there today. A fresh end to what's been a fairly cold week, but with a bit more sunshine, not as many showers and lighter winds. Overall, a slightly warmer feeling by this afternoon. But the breeze is still coming down from the north and still bringing plenty of showers over northern Scotland, a sprinkling for Northern Ireland. Some showers this morning for the Midlands and Wales, and they'll drift into southern counties of England perhaps this afternoon. So some showers, yes, but not as intense, not as many as the past couple of days. A bit more sunshine and lighter winds. So although temperatures are still a touch below average, it will feel perhaps a little warmer than the past couple of days. It will be quite cold, though, if you are heading out this evening, and still, particularly on the roads across the southeast, there could be quite a lot of spray and surface water from the scattering of showers here. Elsewhere, though, many places dry to end Friday. 1 or 2 showers feeding in off the Irish Sea into Cumbria, perhaps, and showers throughout the day into northern Scotland, fed in by that breeze. Still coming down from the north, still quite noticeable, but not as strong as recent days. Well, the winds are easing and the skies are clearing. It's going to turn quite cold quite quickly on Friday night, so bear that in mind if you're heading out. And something for gardeners to bear in mind as well, because as we go through the early hours, those temperatures are going to get pretty close to freezing. Towns and cities may hold up at 4 or 5 degrees above freezing, but certainly in rural spots, not far off zero to start the weekend. Frost likely across Scotland, northern England, but even further south, pockets of frost are possible through Wales and even southern England. Shouldn't be too frosty in Northern Ireland because more cloud will come in here. That'll make for a grey day tomorrow with some outbreaks of rain. Some of that will trickle into western Scotland, parts of Wales through the day. Ahead of it, the odd shower, but a good chunk of the Midlands, eastern and northern England, much of eastern Scotland staying dry and bright for most of the day. Temperature-wise, a little bit higher as well, just starting to tick up, and signs of things getting a bit warmer as we go into next week.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Live from Washington, DC, this is Bev Turner on GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America in a very gossipy studio. So the sharks are circling. A Greater Manchester mayor has launched his bid to return to Westminster in a direct threat to the Prime Minister.
A tumultuous day here in Downing Street, ending with one simple realisation. This Prime Minister will not last the Parliament.
Tumultuous and rainy today. Thank you, Tom Harwood. Elsewhere, China charm offensive. Xi Jinping has rolled out the red carpet as President Trump hails the relationship, one of the most consequential in world history.
The relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before.
And breaking news tonight, you may like this one. Britain and 45 other European nations are preparing to toughen deportation powers and change human rights laws. I'll give you all the details of that in just a moment. I am Bev Turner and this is The Late Show Live. Delighted to say that I'm joined in the studio this evening by Angelina Mackay and also Matt Terrell, and in London, former Labour advisor Matthew Torbett and Jonathan Liss. Thank you all, guys, for joining us this evening. Let's kick off this hour with this story that we are the first to bring to GB News viewers, but you'll be hearing about it no doubt all day tomorrow. Britain and 45 other European countries are expected to agree changes to the way the human rights laws are interpreted in a move designed to make it easier to deport failed asylum seekers and foreign criminals. The declaration is expected to clarify how the European Convention of Human Rights should be interpreted by both the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg and national courts across Europe. The changes could pave the way for so-called migrant return hubs, where asylum seekers could be sent offshore while their claims are processed. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper and Attorney General Richard Hermer will represent the UK at today's meeting. Let me bring in all of my guests on this now. If I maybe go to London first of all, because how significant does this sound to you, Matt Torbett? Because it is the ECHR, which means that people get to stay in the UK because of things like, you know, I need my child to have a certain chicken nugget. And I know these stories get blown out of all proportion, but this idea that you must have a family life, I think this is what they're talking about changing.
I think the ECHR is a bit of a misnomer, and it's beginning to annoy me, politicians banding it about without really clearly knowing what the issue is, because if you're bothered about immigration, the ECHR is not the sticking point that you need to be bothered about. Since 1980, the ECHR has overturned 12 asylum cases. Is that a problem? Maybe it is. Is it the biggest problem? No, it's not. I think the aspect that people may... for me, I've always been a proponent of offshore processing. I don't want people coming across the channel from a safety and security point of view. I also don't want to hear about people dying in the channel, making the desperate journey across if they are true asylum seekers. I think you need to look at the 1951 Convention. That supersedes any domestic law we've got. And that says you are allowed to cross via irregular means if you have a well-founded fear of persecution. No, at the minute, that's probably about 2/3 of the world. We have lots of civil war breaking out, we have countries at war with each other, and obviously people may well have a well-founded fear of persecution. And I think you should have pinch points. If we've got people leaving Afghanistan or Syria or somewhere else, why have we not got somewhere in Turkey where people are going to be coming across, they don't have to come all the way to us, and you can hand in your documents and we know who you are. And if you're a true asylum seeker, then that's fair enough. If you're somebody blagging it and throwing your passport in the channel, that's an issue. We don't know who you are and what your true sort of feelings are, I suppose. And I think if you do that, I don't think you can pull out of it, as Reform are saying. You need to go and redo it. The convention is from a time where Jews were fleeing persecution after World War II, and we rightfully started taking people in, as lots of people did across Europe. But it's from a different time, and I think that is the issue, as well as, I heard you speak in the previous hour about the Human Rights Act. It's really badly and poorly worded and drafted legislation that then judges will infer their own thoughts on. Really, that's part of the problem. So if people want to really tackle illegal immigration, the ECHR is not the silver bullet. It mentions nothing to do with small boats, nothing to do with migration. You can remove the ECHR; those boats will still come.
Matt, what do you think of that?
Yeah, look, I think the component of small boats crossing, that is a huge issue, obviously, in the UK. And similar to the United States, illegal immigration has been front and center among voters. If you look at the polling in the UK right now, the vast majority of the people in the UK want to see a tighter border. And so, look, I think we need to unpack this further. There's certainly a human rights element to certain things, and those discussions take shape. But the bigger element here, I think, is national security. And I think national security is the biggest component right now of all of this. You have people crossing the border who are not vetted. We had the same problem here in the United States before President Trump was elected. This has been a massive concern. It's one of the big reasons why Reform did so well in the last election. It's one of the biggest reasons that Starmer's polling numbers are so low.
I'm just having a look at a bit more detail on this. I say this is a story that we weren't allowed to bring you until after midnight tonight. It was embargoed. The most important changes are expected to be in relation to the interpretation of Article C of the ECHR, protecting against inhuman and degrading treatment, and Article 8, which protects the right to a family life. I thought it was that. They're seen as the biggest obstacles to government's ability to remove failed asylum seekers and foreign criminals in recent years. As much as I think I totally agree with Matt Talbot in terms of the fact that we do have to do something about our illegal migration situation. It's just embarrassing, it's ridiculous, and it helps nobody. But I also quite like as we move towards a time in which I increasingly distrust governments, I quite like to have the right to a family life. I don't like the idea that families might be split asunder by authoritarian governments, Angelina. Do you think my fear is unfounded?
I mean, no, of course, no one wants families torn apart. I think, the hard part about migration, even illegal migration, is the humanity component of it. It is a really, really hard thing because you do see everything that's going on in the world. You see these civil wars around the world. You see different genocides happening around the world. You have so much empathy for what's going on in these different countries. And to be fair, at the end of the day, I'm lucky. I'm lucky I was randomly born in the U.S. I could have been born anywhere else in the world. I'm very fortunate with the privileges that I have, but unfortunately, I also see other Americans here who don't have the privileges that I have, that also are in desperate need of help. And so there is a component of how much resources can we actually allocate to helping foreign nationals versus just helping our own people here at home. Of course, that should be a priority, and it's very important. But yeah, it's incredibly hard. There's a lot of nuances in illegal migration, of course, because of the moral component of it.
It's been criticised, Jonathan, because the Conservatives' Reform are saying this agreement is irrelevant. It is not. It's non-binding, basically. It's only withdrawing from the convention to enable Britain to combat illegal immigration. Refugees, humanitarian charities apparently have written a letter warning that they are profoundly concerned that the changes will undermine Britain's global fight against torture by authoritarian regimes. Do you think Britain should be anywhere near this agreement, or should we not be able to tread our own path and have our own interpretation of this?
I think that we need to see the devil be in the detail, and we see what the final agreement that is kind of done with all the different signatories. If there is a universal, unanimous agreement between the signatories then that will have to be taken seriously. I think that is much more preferable than the United Kingdom going it alone, or even by withdrawing altogether from the ECHR, as even the Conservative Party wants to. And there's a whole other discussion, by the way, to be had about how the Conservative Party is doing nothing to win back the disaffected voters on its sort of liberal, small L liberal left flank, who have completely defected the Lib Dems and not going anywhere near the Conservatives again under Badenoch. The Conservatives had massive losses the other day in the local elections. But look, I think that we do obviously need to have a conversation about migration. You and I have had that conversation many, many times. And there are some things that I agree with that Matt just said, Matt Talbot just said, about how we process asylum seekers. I've always said that we should have a system where people do not have to make this incredibly dangerous crossing to the UK in order to claim asylum. They should be allowed to do that in, for example, France, if that is where they are kind of congregating. There should be some processing centres in France, and so the decision can be made there. Or, in case of regional conflict, yes, some money could be paid to countries in the regions of safe countries where people can make claims there, because it's not fair to put all the burden on the first country that people get to. Those countries are often very poor. They don't have the resources to deal with huge influxes of asylum seekers and migrants fleeing a war or persecution or whatever. And in those situations, Britain, as a rich country, does need to do its bit. These are global crises and they require global solutions. I think it's really wrong. What so many people on the right in this country say is that they almost want to wash their hands of these problems that are affecting the whole world. We need to do our bit. We need to contribute. I'm not saying we should be contributing unfairly or disproportionately, but so far Britain never has done that. We've never taken more refugees than, for example, Germany.
Matt, what's the line between washing your hands of these people and taking some responsibility?
Well, listen, I'm speaking from the United States because I think, obviously this has been a big issue in the United States, illegal immigration, as it is in the UK. Look, we're compassionate people, but there's also a process to come to the United States to become a legal citizen here in the United States. And there is, I want to go back to, a national security component to all of this. One of the reasons why you're seeing a rise in crime in the United States, a rise in violence, people being killed, is because many people have been killed by illegal immigrants who've had gang ties, for example, here in the United States. The bottom line here is there's a major issue here for the UK and the United States with national security. Thankfully, President Trump in the United States has secured the border. He's trying to do what he can to get those who are in the United States illegally out of the country. And that's not an issue of being, a humanitarian issue. This is really the security of a nation. And I think every nation needs to have a process where they allow people to come into the country, but it's done in a legal way, a vetted way, so you know who's coming in, who's not coming in, and you can ensure that you are protecting the citizens of the country.
Well, in that
and that's been a major problem for the UK. So, look, we can talk about the humanitarian issue of this. Everybody in the United States, from a citizen standpoint that I talk to, recognizes that, but they also recognize that there's a legal process, and the challenge that the UK has had is you have not had a system in place where you have worked to secure the border and vetted, frankly, in an effective way the people coming into the country.
But if you say you're a compassionate country, then why have the number of refugees almost dried up? Refugees, not sort of the legitimate refugees, there are almost none that are coming to America right now, apart from white South Africans, Afrikaners. You could not make it up. It is white supremacism on stilts. This idea that the United States is a compassionate country, well, let's see. There are a lot of refugees, a lot of genuine refugees in the world, but under Donald Trump, none of them, almost none, is able to go to the United States. Why is that? It's because you're not compassionate.
First of all,
it's a country that's now based on a totally racist policy.
You've made your point, Jonathan. It's a very good point. Go on.
Listen, first of all, with all due respect, don't lecture me about us being compassionate here in the United States. This country, the United States, the taxpayers of this country have given significant amount of money around the country, around the world, I should say, to help people. Places like Africa. We're the ones who are providing and selling weapons to Taiwan. This big discussion right now between China and Taiwan. The United States is standing strong in supporting weapons to Taiwan, to defend Taiwan. The United States has done a tremendous amount around the world to try and help people in need. So I don't want to hear about that, frankly. And as for immigration...
Completely.
Listen, as for immigration here in the United States, you cannot have an open border for the United States, and frankly, you can't have an open border for the UK. And the proof of that is in the amount of violence you are seeing from people crossing these borders who you do not know who they are. And in many cases, they are very violent people who should not be entering these countries. It comes down to protecting your citizens. That's a major component of this here in the United States.
I never said
and
open
the UK.
borders. You're not answering my question. You're deliberately avoiding my question, which is why, if you're a compassionate country, why are you not letting in any refugees? I think it's in the double digits, the number of refugees that have been let into the United States. Why are you not letting in anyone apart from white Afrikaners under the extraordinarily racist, false proviso that those people are facing a genocide in South Africa? That is completely outrageous. Why aren't you doing it? You can't be both. You can't be a compassionate country and also not letting in those people.
So what does you want us to do? Just have
I never said open borders. You're the easy one saying open borders.
We have a process in this country for how people enter the country.
But there is a prejudice towards letting in white South Africans. So it's either we're letting in no refugees or we're not being hypocrites. So I think I agree with you there is we shouldn't be letting in these white South Africans either, right? Because it's either we're letting in and giving opportunity to all refugees despite color, race, or where they're coming from, or we're just allowing white South Africans. Where's the logic there? Why are we allowing these refugees in?
I would say that potentially the distinction there may be that these white South Africans who are being driven out of their homes at the moment do not come from a trauma zone. So what I mean by that is one of my concerns when we take into any of our countries people who are refugees who've come from war zones, they are traumatized people who've often been brutalized by the violence they've either witnessed or actually executed themselves, sometimes in self-defense. I'm not suggesting we're letting in murderers all the time, but people that come from those sorts of countries, I believe, come as an emotional time bomb, potentially, not always, but you are more likely to see somebody commit an atrocity when they have been exposed to them. And I wonder whether that is why in this country, white Afrikaans who have come from a peaceful country where they've been growing their lives and running farms, etc., being driven out. Is that part of it, Matt, do you think? Therefore, and under that definition, does President Trump have a right to say, I'll take those people?
I think what President Trump has been doing is trying to ensure that we have a process and a secure border in this country. And you can talk all night long about refugees and the humanitarian component of this. There's a component to that, but there's also a component to having a secure border. And, just ask the family members of those who were shot here in Washington, D.C., who are National Guard members. You get somebody from Afghanistan who came into this country under President Biden, who's the one that committed that violence. So, look, the bottom line here is we've had a real issue, particularly under President Biden in this nation, of having an open border that allowed anyone in, and we know who they were. And frankly, the UK is facing that same challenge, and it's one of the reasons why people in the UK right now, based on the polling, are very concerned about immigration.
Okay, let's have a quick chat now to somebody who knows a lot more about this topic probably than any of us do. From the Centre for Immigration Studies, Mark Krikorian joins me now. Mark, I don't know whether you were listening to our rather heated debate there about migration, and maybe on this hearing, this news that we're hearing right now, which is that Europe and the UK may be having a different interpretation of the ECHR to make it easier to deport people from our European countries back to the countries from whence they came, because we will change the interpretation of the ECHR. Will it make any difference, Mark?
Well, look, here's hoping. But this is not a binding agreement, whatever form it takes, on the judges themselves in the European Court of Human Rights, or frankly in the judiciaries of the particular countries, the member countries. So, it's worth a try, but I'm skeptical. I mean, the European Convention for Human Rights is an anachronism. The entire structure of asylum and refugee law is an artifact of World War II and the Red Army takeover of Eastern Europe. Asylum was designed for a handful of Russian ballerinas, with a little exaggeration, but not much. And it has now become the vehicle for mass illegal immigration. And the ability to make bogus asylum claims, because almost all of them are fake, is one of the things that's generating the dislocation and the migration in these countries. In other words, people leave Afghanistan in part because the odds are good of getting into Europe somehow. And so the current policies on asylum and refugees are one of the things that's driving the migration crisis. This agreement might help to sort of limit and cabin the ECHR, but I'm skeptical. I mean, look, it's your country, not mine, but I'm not optimistic that it'll actually make a difference. I think it really is a way for the governments to pretend they're doing something, even if they really want to do something, but without actually making the kind of changes they need to make. Because, for instance, they should not be doing, for instance, that deal that Italy had with Albania, where people that they fished out of the water would be sent to Albania, where they could apply for asylum, be processed for asylum in the EU or in Italy. In fact, illegal immigrants need to be told very clearly, you don't even get to apply for asylum, period. Especially for the UK, no one who gets to the UK is a real asylum seeker, because they've all passed through multiple countries where they could have and should have applied for asylum. Things across the channel even have his asylum claim entertained at all since he didn't apply in France.
Yeah, no, you make a very good point, Mark, and it's something that we share your exasperation and befuddlement about, frankly, if I can use that word, because it is extremely confusing to us as to why the will just appears to not be here. Thank you so much, Mark Krikorian there from the Centre for Immigration Studies. We'd love to have you back again, Mark. Thanks so much. Let's also talk now to the former Immigration Minister, Kevin Foster, about this. Kevin, as we just heard there, this may not make any difference at all in terms of illegal migration, and as Mark said there, why are we even giving anybody that comes across the channel the right to apply for asylum? Shouldn't that just be a very simple explanation? If you come over here on a boat, in a truck, in a car, whatever, illegally, you can't apply for asylum. Wouldn't that stop?
Yeah, it would certainly make a difference. But let's remember, that's the Refugee Convention under the UN, a more global piece of law, rather than the European Convention on Human Rights, which, of course, is more relevant in immigration when it comes to actually trying to remove people from the United Kingdom, because people will put up that, they've got a family life here now and they couldn't be removed, or they'll try and make a claim about how they'd be treated in the country that they'd be being returned to or taken to. We actually even saw under the not particularly successful one-in, one-out deal, some people even try and argue under the ECHR it'd be difficult for them to be sent to France, France, modern European democracy. So my expectation of this protocol or announcement or agreement isn't particularly high. What I suspect it may be aimed at is trying to deal with some of the more extreme cases we've seen of judicial interpretation of the European Court of Human Rights in our own courts based on the principles of the ECHR, like the chicken nuggets case. But I think, like a lot of things we've discussed recently about this issue, it'll make some difference, but not a fundamental one.
Well, that's a little bit depressing. Given the pressures that Starmer is under at the moment, you would think, Kevin, this might be the time he'll pull it out of the bag, wouldn't you? Like, he's going to be on the phone to Shabana Mahmood going, I have got to save my skin. If you can just fix that issue with illegal migration, Shabana, not only do I keep my job as Prime Minister, but you are going straight to the House of Lords when we finish this job here. Like that, there's a lot that they should be doing right now. Is this the kind of situation, Kevin, in which he might pull a rabbit out of a hat?
It's possible. I think, look, I've said it many times, if the Labour Party want to win the next general election, they need to get the debate off immigration. And the only real way of doing that is solving the issue in the Channel, not coming up with another three-word slogan or a natty media strategy. You've got to actually solve it. And that means implementing a broad strategy, like's been done in the United States under President Trump, to resolve this type of issue. And that means legal changes in terms of what people can claim, and crucially, how you can remove people from the country, including back to some of the countries of origin. And that's going to involve some difficult discussions and decisions, including, for example, what you do about returns to Afghanistan. That would mean talking to Taliban. But Germany has recently been returning convicted criminals to Afghanistan, facilitated by the Qataris. So it's not perhaps as radical as some people listening to that may think it is. So if the Labour Party want to improve their pretty dire poll ratings at the moment, they need to deal with this issue, because if they try and make any other welfare changes, any other changes in anything else, people are going to say, well, hang on, we're still spending X amount on hotels and on this issue. Why should I have to accept a cut or accept a change to my services whilst that's going on? But I just don't see Keir Starmer having the drive to do that, certainly not with Lord Hermer as his Attorney General. However, when you listen to a lot of what Shabana Mahmood says, I get the impression she does understand it. But could she get that through Labour's backbenches? Probably not. She'd have to rely on the votes of Conservative and Reform MPs to get it through the House of Commons.
Kevin, just briefly on my last point, I don't know whether you heard what I was saying then about taking people from war zones. And it's always surprised me why that topic of conversation doesn't arise more often. And I know that sounds incredibly harsh, and I know I'm not drowning in the milk of human kindness when I say that. But when we bring people who have been in areas which have seen significant violence either enacted upon them or their loved ones, or they have been forced to be violent against other people, sometimes even to take another person's life, within the corridors of power about immigration, does anybody ever sit around and go, I'm not sure for that very reason that I'm not sure we should take people from that country at the moment, from that war zone, because they may pose a violent risk and be unpredictable and be at the mercy of mental health services, which we can't fund. It never appears in this conversation, Kevin. Is there a reason for that?
Well, when we do planned resettlement routes, one of the things you do is assess people coming over before you look to move them. That's the issue between planned refugee resettlement into a place in the UK versus just people showing up in the border and buying their way in via a small boat. So yes, there would be consideration, people assessed. You obviously look at their background. Have they been involved in violence in the countries concerned, and what potential threat they may or may not face? We took a lot of people from Ukraine. That was quite a different situation, where people were moving, and also a lot of people with a view to wanting to move back, and that was done at the start of the conflict. But it is considered. The issue you've got is, unless you can deal with the issue of people just being able to buy their way over the channel, in many ways you're not getting to the nub of this problem. It's not those really coming on actual planned resettlement routes that are generally the issue. It's those who literally just present themselves at the border, and as you say, many of them will be in countries where violence is commonplace, where attitudes towards women in particular are very different to what they are in this country and in most of the West, and inevitably that does have consequences.
Yeah, okay, Kevin, always good to see you. Thank you. Fascinating. Former Immigration Minister Kevin Foster. Right, in other news this evening, President Trump has cast further uncertainty over the US-Iran ceasefire that he insists is still in place, by claiming his military campaign against the country is to be continued following talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Now, Trump and Xi held talks for more than 2 hours today, on Thursday, as part of the US president's state visit to China. And Washington claimed that the meeting touched extensively on the Iran war, although Beijing's readout only briefly mentioned it. And now we are just 2 hours away from Trump and Xi's bilateral tea, meaning on the last day of the on the last day of the US president's visit. Now, the president is also set to visit Xiongyang, how do you say that? Come on, panel. Xiongyang.
Yeah.
Xiongyang.
There you go.
There we go. A compound where China's leaders live, work and presumably know how to pronounce. With me now is the editor-in-chief at the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me. I don't know whether you can pronounce the place that they are set to visit. Go on, how do we pronounce it?
I think you guys did a good job.
I actually do think you did a good job.
Very well done. So where does what would President Trump, let's just break this down as simply as possible. What would President Trump have wanted to say to President Xi about Iran?
So this entire trip was to reset leverage, right? We're not trying to make friends with the Chinese, but we're actually trying to make the best of a situation with an adversary. And in the case of trade and Taiwan and Tehran, the best we could hope for is that the message was conveyed and not through pleasantries where we leave it up to the Chinese to read between the lines as we've done in the past. In this case, we are on the sidelines of a war that looks like it's going to go back to kinetic war after this meeting. More and more, we're getting the impression that that's where we're headed towards. With regards to the Iran regime, the message is simple to the Chinese. You can either enter the U.S. markets, or you can continue funding, enabling, arming a terror regime, and you just can't have both, and leave it up to them. And I think the most important thing here is that we can't just take empty promises from the Chinese, but we need certain parameters that are verifiable and are quantifiable so that we can hold them to it. You want tariffs removed, you want to enter the trade market, AI, chips, etc. You can't be buying cheap oil from the Iran regime. You cannot be giving them money to fund their proxies, their deadly proxies. So on the one hand, we can't be basically doing business with them and then having to basically fight them between the Houthis and Hezbollah and their own shenanigans at Hormuz. So I think the message is pretty clear. You can't have it both ways, and you can choose your destiny.
And so in effect, China will always conclude that America is more important to them than Iran, although China heavily relies on Iran for its oil as well, doesn't it?
Sure. So yes, in 2021, they entered in a 25-year deal that was worth about $400 million, where they would give the Iran regime all sorts of help with their weapons programs, with basically ingredients to have jet fuel, to basically give them money because they're buying cheap discounted oil. But look, at the end of the day, you are absolutely right to say China is an equal opportunity opportunist. So if a better deal comes along, they're not the loyal girlfriend that's sitting by the phone and waiting for the Iran regime to call with a better offer. They're going to take that offer. But if we know the Chinese, and we've seen their duplicitous acts before, they're going to want to have it both ways. And I think that that's exactly where we have to hold them to it. You have to stop Iran's regime. You have to help us collapse Iran's regime. You have to help us open up Hormuz, or the tariffs go back on and you lose your deals with the United States. I think, you know, that leverage and that lever has to be made very, very clear.
Interesting, Lisa. Brilliant, as always. Absolutely brilliant. I love the metaphor of the girlfriend sat there waiting. Lisa Daftari, what a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you so much. Let's talk to my panel about this issue now. Angelina, let me come to you first of all on this. President Trump will get back from China and has to deal with Iran. It's got to be the top of his inbox now. And Lisa's rather bleak assessment there that she believes it's going to go back to a kinetic war. That is the last thing that President Trump needs. Can he avoid it?
I'm not sure that he can. Look, I'm not confident that the Iranians are going to give up any kind of pursuit of nuclear proliferation, or especially when it comes to power. Iran is dealing with a power crisis in their country in general. You know, they're thinking about even moving their capital because of different power issues, and that was before the Iranian war even started. Now, Xi Jinping, I don't think that he was able to, Trump was able to persuade him. Of course, we don't know that yet, but was Trump able to persuade him to help push Iran to make a deal? I don't think that Xi Jinping has any, inclination to even do that. He sees that America is at a weak point, even though they are blocking the Strait of Hormuz. All of our resources are tied up in the Iran war, and in a way, it is giving China a bit of a political advantage over the U.S.
Matt?
Yeah, look, I think first of all, in terms of China here, they're feeling the economic pressure here. I mean, look, they import roughly 90% of Iran's oil into their country, roughly 10% of, energy and oil and China comes from Iranian oil. So look, this is a major problem for China, and China already had, prior to this war starting, massive economic problems. And China's an exporter, and they cannot export the way they need to if this strait is closed. So look, we'll see what China does, but the United States doesn't need China to end this war. I think President Trump will get this war to come to an end. I think it'll come to an end soon. We'll see what President Trump does in terms of kinetic action or not. But the other country that's facing massive economic challenges is Iran. You know, day by day, they're hurting in terms of this war continuing. Every day this strait is closed, it hurts Iran, hurts China. There's no question that Iran is on its heels. The bigger element is who are we really dealing with over there? There's a few hardliners left, but the regime has been decimated, layers of it. And so I think you know, the United States is in a strong position here as it relates to ending this war. The question is timing and whether that's going to be continued military force, but obviously the economic pressure needs to stay on Iran. I think that's been critical.
Go to my London boys on this. I'm just looking at potentially some breaking news about Cuba. But Jonathan, President Trump really wanted Iran to be wrapped up very quickly. He said sort of, you know, 4 to 6 weeks or so, and we're now looking at, what are we on to, 3 months? A bit more maybe, 12 to 14 weeks I think we must be getting on to now. Just respond to it. It's affecting everybody, isn't it?
Bev, this is not only a catastrophe on its own terms, catastrophe for the Iranian people, who do not figure very much in this discussion, sadly, but they should. A catastrophe for, obviously, so the global economy. We haven't even begun to absorb the shock yet of the closure of the Straits of Hormuz. But I think most potently for this conversation, perhaps, it's a total catastrophe for US power. This is a generational humbling of the United States. And it's people like, I can't remember his name, a guy in the Atlantic, Kagan, is it? Who's, you know, quite a hawk, was even saying this a couple of days ago, that we have not seen this kind of humbling of the United States since Vietnam, and maybe even before that. This is the kind of thing that the United States has tried to do something, has tried to defeat a deeply middling power, a low to middling power, and has failed to do it. They thought that they could repeat what happened in Venezuela, where they sort of go in, decapitate the leader, and sort of march in and take all the oil, which is they're completely open about, by the way. And they just posted the White House, but literally the White House just posted a meme of the United States flag over Venezuela the other day, by the way, if you want an idea of how they think they relate to Venezuela and Venezuelan people. So they thought they could do that in Iran. And obviously the Iranians had other ideas. And now they don't know what to do, because the key aim of the war is to reopen the straits that were open before the war started, and they have no idea how to do it, and every single thing they try fails. So either the idea is to send in the ground troops and risk a bloody and protracted conflict, which is going to go down like a bucket of cold sick in America and the American people, who already hate this war, or they keep the status quo and suffer the economic consequences. This is going to be Donald Trump's legacy. He was warned by expert after expert that Iran would close the straits, that they would target their neighbors. He ignored that. He was stupid enough to believe Netanyahu's lies, the lies that Netanyahu has given every single US president since he's been in Israeli politics. They're all smart enough to disregard it. Sadly, Trump is not smart, and he was not smart enough to disregard it. And look at where we are now.
Matthew, would you respond to that excoriating attack on President Trump?
Yes, quite. I think the president seemed to have 5 goals at the start of this war. Liberate the Iranian people, certainly at the very beginning. I think, as Jonathan says, we don't hear about that anymore. It was originally about the Iranian people. Destroy the nuclear program, wipe out the ballistic missiles, dismantle the terror networks, and sink the Navy. And he's managed to sink the Navy, and it's cost $29 billion of taxpayers' money. You can't bomb and destroy a nuclear weapon, because you cannot get rid of the minds that can create that. They will go back to the drawing board and go back and do what they need to do to enrich the uranium. They know how to do this sort of stuff. And my concern for everybody is that this will be such a colossal waste of time. They've taken out an old man who was good for dying and anyway, and people could have got back round the table with the Arab states and done a bit of a renegotiation after leaving the JCPOA. And the only way out of this, I think, because Iran hold the cards currently, the IRGC have taken America's best punch and are still standing, unfortunately for all of us. And I think they're going to have to go back and agree probably something similar to the deal that they left in 2018. And I think what concerns me is we have a one-page peace deal at the moment, as it's termed. The JCPOA was 192 pages. You had physicians and scientists around the table. At the minute, we have a real estate guy and the president's son-in-law lobbyist against some of the better minds in the Middle East. I don't see any way out of this unless he gives in. And we wasted $29 million to sink an Iranian navy. I mean, obviously, we're all feeling the economic effects as well. It's hitting us all.
Yeah, Marco Rubio, your mate Matt Terrell, he's been at pains to say repeatedly this is about stopping them having a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, it's spot on. Look, we can't allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and the truth is they've lied. They lied about how far their missile capabilities could go. We saw that when they launched 2 missiles against Diego Garcia. Look, Iran is a threat. They've been the greatest state sponsor of terrorism. You want to talk about the people of Iran. Just this year alone, the Iranian regime has killed, 30 to 40,000 of its own people? This is a horrific regime. They need to be taken out. And past presidents have talked about doing this. They've talked about trying to deal with the Iranian regime, trying to ensure that they don't have a nuclear weapon. One president, only one president, has actually stood up and done something about it, and that's President Trump. And by the way, you've had other countries have had sanctions against Iran. Other countries have recognized how Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Another country just recently recognized that, and that's China. China just recently, the past couple hours, said that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. So the bottom line here is the world knows the danger of Iran having a nuclear weapon. Thankfully, President Trump took action on it. And the last thing I'll say is it's been a few months. A lot of wars last for a few years. And the truth is these are been targeted strikes. We'll see what President Trump does next. I'm confident he'll get this war to come to an end.
Well, no one voted for this war, Matt. As you know perfectly well, the United States electorate voted against this war because Donald Trump's on the platform of not invading Iran, and the people voted for it, and he fooled them. And we never see any apology from Republicans about that. Sorry.
Right, let's have a quick look at some of the other main news here in America this evening. The chief of the US Customs and Border Patrol has announced he's resigning, telling Fox News that his departure is effective immediately. Michael Banks has been in the role since Donald Trump's return to the White House. Canada could join the Eurovision Song Contest. I'm sorry, what? The North American country has reportedly been in talks for more than a year as Prime Minister Mark Carney aims to forge closer ties with Europe. Wouldn't you think he'd have better things to do? The former mayor of a small Kansas town, Jose Ceballos Armendariz, who is a Mexican green card holder, and pleaded guilty last month in connection with illegally voting in several elections, has turned himself into Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Chase County. And the boss of artificial intelligence company OpenAI, Sam Altman, has insisted that he is an honest and trustworthy business person. His comments follow Elon Musk's claim that he moved to steal the company and turn it from a charity into a capitalist venture. The two tech bosses are currently at the centre of a court battle over the firm behind ChatGPT. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
I think having a leadership election would be the wrong choice for us to take.
So one story dominating all the newspaper front pages, of course, an embattled Prime Minister refusing to back down. It is not a good look. Also tonight.
What do you think they would do if they had a nuclear weapon? They would hold the world hostage with that nuclear weapon.
Well, that was Secretary of State Marco Rubio talking just a few days ago actually, and there is growing speculation tonight that he could already be emerging as the front runner for the next Republican presidential ticket. Let's discuss that in just a moment. Quick look at your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A chilly feel again out there today, a fresh end to what's been a fairly cold week, but with a bit more sunshine, not as many showers and lighter winds. Overall, a slightly warmer feeling by this afternoon. But the breeze is still coming down from the north and still bringing plenty of showers over northern Scotland, a sprinkling for Northern Ireland. Some showers this morning for the Midlands and Wales, and they'll drift into southern counties of England perhaps this afternoon. So some showers, yes, but not as intense intense, not as many as the past couple of days. A bit more sunshine and lighter winds. So although temperatures are still a touch below average, it will feel perhaps a little warmer than the past couple of days. It will be quite cold, though, if you are heading out this evening, and still, particularly on the roads across the southeast, there could be quite a lot of spray and surface water from the scattering of showers here. Elsewhere, though, many places dry to end Friday. 1 or 2 showers feeding in off the Irish Sea into Cumbria, perhaps, and showers throughout the day into northern Scotland, fed in by that breeze. Still coming down from the north, still quite noticeable, but not as strong as recent days. Well, the winds are easing and the skies are clearing. It's going to turn quite cold quite quickly on Friday night, so bear that in mind if you're heading out. And something for gardeners to bear in mind as well, because as we go through the early hours, those temperatures are going to get pretty close to freezing. Towns and cities may hold up at 4 or 5 degrees above freezing, but certainly in rural spots, not far off zero to start the weekend. Frost likely across Scotland, northern England, but even further south, pockets of frost are possible through Wales and even southern England. Shouldn't be too frosty in Northern Ireland because more cloud will come in here. That'll make for a grey day tomorrow with some outbreaks of rain. Some of that will trickle into western Scotland, parts of Wales through the day. Ahead of it, the odd shower, but a good chunk of the Midlands, eastern and northern England, much of eastern Scotland staying dry and bright for most of the day. Temperature-wise, a little bit higher as well, just starting to tick up, and signs of things getting a bit warmer as we go into next week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Bringing you some breaking news now. It's what I was a little distracted with just before the break, because the United States is reportedly preparing to indict former Cuban leader Raul Castro over one of the most controversial incidents in modern Cuban-American history. American officials are saying the Justice Department is exploring charges linked to the 1996 shoot-down of 2 civilian aircraft operated by the humanitarian group Brothers to the Rescue, an attack that killed 4 people and sent shockwaves through the Cuban exile community in Florida. Raul Castro, now 94 years old and the brother of revolutionary leader Fidel Castro, was serving as Cuba's defense minister at the time of the incident when Cuban fighter jets blasted the planes out of the sky over international waters. The move would mark an extraordinary escalation from Washington, not just reopening a decades-old Cold War wound, but potentially putting one of the last surviving giants of the Cuban regime in the legal crosshairs of the United States. Let me ask my American guests what we should think about this. What should we think about this, Matt?
Well, look, I think the Trump administration, this is really the Department of Justice, and they're going to, go about, do what they see is fit in terms of this indictment, but there is no question that the issue of Cuba, this horrific regime that's been in Cuba, has been front and center with the United States for decades, particularly in Florida, in South Florida. If you go down to Miami in particular, there are people who fled Cuba who are here in the United States, became citizens of the United States, or family members who fled Cuba, who understand the horrific nature of this regime. So look, we'll see how this all plays out in terms of the indictment. That'll be up to the Department of Justice in terms of pushing forward with it. But look, obviously Cuba's been in the news in terms of what the administration is doing with it, recognizing that Cuba has really been the harbor for terrorism and other horrific acts. That's certainly something I think you can expect to follow with the administration going forward here.
Well, at the moment, it looks like they've run out of oil in Cuba because they've been strangled
Venezuela,
via Venezuela, exactly. The people are almost rioting on the streets. We're hearing this evening that their power grid is in a critical state. This is a country that's sort of collapsing before our very eyes. So this indictment now of Castro, this is just about taking them off the top still, isn't it? So that the country becomes even weaker.
Look, I'm very concerned about the humanitarian crisis that's happening in Cuba right now. It's absolutely horrific. They're cutting people off. Like the way that the people are almost resilient against the power problems that they're facing, like hospitals are not able to perform surgeries, they're not able to help give people the resources they need to have birth or whatever other medical care they need. The humanitarian crisis is never been seen like in Cuba this bad so far. But What I would say is that, like, what happens when we take this leader out? Is there going to be a power vacuum? Who's going to fill that role? Will Cubans actually then get the help or the oil that they need in order to have a livable, sustainable society? Where is the humanitarian aid then going to come from? What is the plan after we indict him? Are we just, again, America and Trump, the Trump administration doesn't always seem to have a plan. They just take action and just deal with the consequences as they come.
Let me ask my London panel about this situation of this breaking news. I know you probably both have a very dim view of what's happening in Cuba at the moment. Is it another example of America trying to do what's right for the people and long-term gain for short-term pain, Matt?
It's not a incident I am particularly well read on, so I can't comment on the incident from all them years ago. I think as a general view, what Venezuela showed me is that America is clearly back in the empire business. And ultimately this is going to come back to oil and a petro-vassal state that they're going to try and run through a American proxy or patsy that they will put up, no doubt, the same as in Venezuela. Nothing about the Venezuela regime changed. The vice president is still there, acting as the president, and doing America's bidding for them. So that is my sort of general overview. The rest of it, I don't know enough on, Bev, to be honest.
I think it's, if I can say...
On this occasion, Jonathan, actually, no, you can't on this occasion. I'm so sorry, but I do want to get one more story, and I want to talk about the Marco. No doubt Cuba's going to be not going anywhere, so we'll talk about this when you're next on, probably tomorrow. But let's talk about Marco Rubio, shall we, and whether he is the president in waiting effectively. According to a new poll, he surged ahead of JD Vance for the 2028 election. Vance was seen as the leader, but Rubio is growing. You've worked with him, Matt. I have to say, I find him phenomenally impressive whenever I watch him speak. I am so in awe of his ability to calm the room. He's the I like Trump, and I can see the flaws. Of course, I'm not an idiot. I can see the flaws in President Trump. It's sometimes in his communication style. I understand why people don't like it. Rubio is the calm where Trump is the storm, but he brings phenomenal. You just relax when you see Marco Rubio. Your heartbeat slows down.
Look, he's been doing a fantastic job as Secretary of State and many other jobs, as we know. And look, it's up to Secretary Rubio to decide what he does with his future. But what I can tell you is, this is certainly somebody who is, focused on the job he's in. And, the truth is, this is a busy time in the foreign policy stage. I'll tell you, he's the best Secretary of State I think that we've ever had. And look, what he has right now is the MAGA halo. And what I mean by that is the MAGA movement, the conservative movement, I think they have a great deal of trust and respect in Secretary Rubio. They recognize, I think, the job he's doing on the foreign policy stage. But ultimately, this is President Trump's administration. And at the end of the day, it is President Trump who's got to continue to lead the agenda, lead the effort. We have 4 years of President Trump here. 2028 will come up, and certainly, be up to individuals to decide if they want to get in the race or not. That's up to each individual. But truthfully, right now, this is President Trump's administration, and the MAGA movement right now has never been stronger. And that's something that certainly is at play here.
When Trump was elected last time, everyone was raving about JD Vance and what an impressive politician he was. But he somehow slipped back a little bit, I think, in terms of the public awareness. What do you think of Rubio?
I mean, I think Rubio is an interesting choice if that does happen. I've spent a lot of times with different MAGA groups going to a lot of different Trump rallies, and what I hear from the people, and it's interesting because the Oz rally really stands up to me. Do you remember when he was running for office in Pennsylvania, Dr. Oz? Trump had him as his endorsed pick. Yeah. And I was talking to a lot of people in the crowd there, and they're like, actually, we don't like him. We don't want him. We're here for Trump. So whether or not Trump endorses someone, that doesn't guarantee a win, right? Among the community, I often hear them, they prefer the Trump legacy. They like Trump Jr. So whether or not Trump can uphold a MAGA legacy without going directly to his son, that's a huge question. And you look at the divide in the Republican Party, too, where you specifically the divide on Israel. Like a lot of Republicans are saying that Iran is Israel's war, and they're not supportive of that. And a lot of Republicans, what I'm seeing in the dialogue online is they're pushing for Thomas Massie to run. So how will Marco Rubio even fend in a primary? Look, he's done it before and failed, so could happen again.
Quick word from you guys in London. We've only got a minute left. Who do you think would stand for the next president after President Trump? Who'd be the next Republican, Jonathan?
Well, obviously Vance and Rubio will both go for it, but I think that it's not that Rubio's kind of got ascended, it's that the Vance has been exposed as being so overwhelmingly sort of repulsive and sort of two-faced and serpent-like that people have seen through it. You know, he was against the Iran war, but now he's obviously in favour of it. You know, he's against fraud, but obviously his administration is presiding over the most corrupt administration in US history, and people don't believe this stuff. They don't like him. Rubio has managed to be much cleverer. He's managed to steer that course where he can sort of be kind of nudge, nudge, wink, wink. He's against it, but also still be in Trump's good books.
I think we've run out of time, Matt Torbit. I should never say to Jonathan Liss, you've got 10 seconds, because he can't count, can he? But he can talk, and that's what he's hired for. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Matthew Torbit. Thank you, Jonathan Liss. Thank you, Matt Terrell. Thank you, Angelina Macahay. Thank you all for watching me this week. Late Show Live will be back tomorrow night from London, in fact, with Will Kingston, and then Ben will be back at the weekend. I'll see you Monday. Bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A chilly feel, again, out there today. A fresh end to what's been a fairly cold week, but with a bit more sunshine, not as many showers and lighter winds. Overall, a slightly warmer feeling by this afternoon. But the breeze is still coming down from the north and still bringing plenty of showers over northern Scotland, a sprinkling for Northern Ireland. Some showers this morning for the Midlands and Wales, and they'll drift into southern counties of England perhaps this afternoon. So some showers, yes, but not as intense, not as many as the past couple of days. A bit more sunshine and lighter winds. So although temperatures are still a touch below average, it will feel perhaps a little warmer than the past couple of days. It will be quite cold, though, if you are heading out this evening, and still, particularly on the roads across the southeast, there could be quite a lot of spray and surface water from the scattering of showers here. Elsewhere, though, many places dry to end Friday. 1 or 2 showers feeding in off the Irish Sea into Cumbria, perhaps, and showers throughout the day into northern Scotland, fed in by that breeze. Still coming down from the north, still quite noticeable, but not as strong as recent days. Well, the winds are easing and the skies are clearing. It's going to turn quite cold quite quickly on Friday night, so bear that in mind if you're heading out. And something for gardeners to bear in mind as well, because as we go through the early hours, those temperatures are going to get pretty close to freezing. Towns and cities may hold up at 4 or 5 degrees above freezing, but certainly in rural spots, not far off zero to start the weekend. Frost likely across Scotland, northern England, but even further south, pockets of frost are possible through Wales and even southern England. Shouldn't be too frosty in Northern Ireland because more cloud will come in here. That'll make for a grey day tomorrow with some outbreaks of rain. Some of that will trickle into western Scotland, parts of Wales through the day. Ahead of it, the odd shower, but a good chunk of the Midlands, eastern and northern England, much of eastern Scotland staying dry and bright for most of the day. Temperature-wise, a little bit higher as well, just starting to tick up and signs of things getting a bit warmer as we go into next week.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
Not a bad brand. Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me. Do you trust what you're being told?
Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk then? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The GB News audience is different, it's unique, because they see through the nonsense.
We want to debate with each other, we want to listen and maybe learn.
We have a chat. That's what we do. We try and have a chat.
They'll watch my programme while they're eating their tea, they'll watch breakfast while they're busy getting their kids ready for school.
We want to hear what matters to you, what is news for you.
And what's brought you out here today?
What are the biggest issues affecting this particular area?
The audience are the best thing about GB News.
Their friends, their family. They're people who need to have their voices heard.
They're passionate about the channel, they're passionate about what they believe in.
The one thing about GB News is you get a chance to speak.
Talk to me about why so many people have gathered here today.
Do you want to say something back in return? The GB News audience is what makes GB News special.
It's incredible to see.
They shape our programmes, they shape our output, and they shape our channel.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys, and tonight it's Game On. Andy Burnham has found a seat. He wants to challenge Starmer.
Have you resigned, Mr. Streeting? What did you say, Prime Minister?
Did you ask the Prime Minister to resign?
Wes Streeting finally resigned from Cabinet. Angela Rayner was cleared of deliberately dodging tax, so she's in the hunt.
Many of us like Keir very much as a person.
And the woman who first called for Starmer to go has now said that she might vote for him in a leadership contest.
Take responsibility for not walking away, not plunging our country into chaos as the Tories did time and again.
So can Keir Starmer actually cling on here? Meanwhile,
if you get a complaint, you have to. I had 5 of these when I was in Brussels.
Nigel Farage is fending off allegations about his finances.
Stop and chop the boots
And Kemi Badenoch is basking in the glory of being Nicki Minaj's new best mate. On my panel tonight, we have got journalist and broadcaster Linda Jubilee, Tory peer Lord Bailey and ex-Labour advisor Matthew Larser. So get ready, Britain. Here we go. Game on. Next.
Good evening. The top stories at 9 o'clock. Labour MP Josh Simons has announced he will stand aside so Andy Burnham can challenge Sir Keir Starmer. The MP for Makerfield released a statement saying he is putting the people he represents and the country he loves first so that Andy Burnham can return to his home, fight to re-enter Parliament and, if elected, drive the change our country is crying out for. The Greater Manchester Mayor can only challenge Keir Starmer for the Labour leadership if he is an MP. Burnham has now said he wants to be the candidate for Labour in the now upcoming by-election. And Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has told GB News, "We look forward to the Makerfield by-election. Reform will throw absolutely everything at it." Wes Streeting has quit as Health Secretary, paving the way for another potential leadership challenge against the Prime Minister. Mr Streeting is widely thought to be planning to challenge Sir Keir Starmer for the Labour leadership. In his resignation letter to the Prime Minister, Mr Streeting said, "It's now clear that you will not lead the Labour Party into the next general election," adding, "Where we need vision, we have a vacuum." The PM is battling to save his job after 4 ministers quit and dozens of Labour MPs urged him to resign after last week's heavy election losses. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has told reporters Wes Streeting's resignation from government is an opportunity for Labour to draw a line under all of it.
I can't speak for Wes. I think it's a real shame that he's made that decision, because I like and respect Wes. We've worked closely for many, many years. He was a brilliant cabinet colleague. I think he's done a great job as Health Secretary. I'm just sad. I'm sad he's come to that decision. I'd hoped not to be having this conversation, because I think Wes has got a huge amount to offer, and it's a shame that he's taken the decision to step away from cabinet. But that's his decision.
Well, shortly after Streeting resigned, leader of the opposition Kemi Badenoch released this statement saying no one is running the government.
"I told Wes Streeting to do his job. Instead, he's done a hit job on the Prime Minister. The Labour Party has now descended into civil war. And here's the